wisdom.
What fuels the wisdom? Oh, there we go. That could be the title for the episode right there. What fuels the wisdom?
Right.
Yeah. What fuels a detonation of Bomb City vodka?
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, fission fuels Bomb City vodka, no?
Well, yes. Depending on the weapon, that may be the main stage, or that may be I mean, there's different levels of complexity. I think there are three-stage weapons. Um, a three-stage weapon would be a fission, fusion, fission weapon.
A
So,
fission.
yes. And the
So
high explosives are free.
the fission triggers the fusion,
Triggers the fusion.
and then that
And then the
fusion
fusion,
cascade.
yes. And then there's some bonus fission because the fusion throws out so many neutrons
Mm-hmm.
that you can just basically, for the cost of, for a few dollars more, you
Uh-huh.
can add some more fissile material and it will explode very effectively
Mm.
after all that fusion has
Increasing
happened.
your yield, to use
Yeah,
the very clinical language of.
that's right. Yes. So increase your yield, your radius of destruction, whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. Wow. And both you and Bomb City Vodka are the economic beneficiaries of this arms economy.
I mean, so it's a contract site, right? There's a pod of actual Department of Energy people that in some sense oversee what we're doing, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I've met one of them once.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have a whole lot that we do directly with them.
Oh, okay.
We basically work for the regulators,
Right.
um, and the Department of Energy decides what our budget is.
Hmm.
So yeah, when we talk to people outside our own company, it's mostly regulators,
Right.
i.e., the EPA and the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality.
Hmm.
Um,
Because you're still doing that ground cleaning project, correct?
Groundwater cleanup, yeah,
Okay.
and that's the thing. So as I was trying to say, the company talks a good line about we all support the mission. Like at this point, the federal government got the groundwater dirty. It needs to get cleaned up.
Mm-hmm.
It's not it's completely separable from the fact that the guys on the line are refurbishing W83 Mark 13 or whatever it is that they're working on now.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've sort of fixed how we deal with high explosives. I hope. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
We no longer sweep them out the door and hose it down, and let it run into a ditch and into a playa and soak into the aquifer. It's an improvement, not doing those things.
Right.
So we're cleaning up stuff that needs to be cleaned up regardless. And if they picked up the whole operation and moved it to the facility in Kansas City,
Uh-huh.
somebody would need to still be there cleaning up the groundwater.
Ah. Okay.
And likewise, if the regulations changed and people decided, you can let's do a risk assessment. It looks like it'll all naturally degrade before it gets to the city of Amarillo's well field. Case closed, Watson. We could close up shop and the nuclear weapon refurbishment would go on, as it always has. So really what we do is separable from the rest
Okay.
of the company.
All right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The maintenance of readiness to destroy our enemies is that remains constant.
That's right.
Well, right. What ebbs and flows is our dedication to the purification of groundwater.
I mean, I wouldn't say that.
Oh, okay.
It's been this constant ramp up of, oh, this is wrong. Oh, this is wrong. Oh, this is wrong. Oh, this is wrong. Are you kidding me? We need to put more wells in. Are you kidding me? And that's been a pretty constant. Oh gosh, we have a lot of wells.
A lot of wells.
We have a lot of monitoring wells.
Ah,
We
you
have
dig
a
the
lot of
well.
injection wells.
You dig the well in order to bring up water from the aquifer so
That's
that
right.
you can examine the level of
That's right.
purity or non-purity.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
See how many parts per billion of RDX there is. That is the single most important thing that we track.
Mm-hmm. What's RDX?
That depends on who you ask.
Okay.
It's a name
You
from
asked
the
the
early
EPA.
it's a name from the early 20th century, and it is somewhat obscure what exactly it means.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even, to my knowledge, certain whether the Brits developed it or we did, or maybe even somebody in Germany, and then the Brits got hold of it, and then we got hold of it. Who knows? Could mean research department explosive, or it could mean Royal Demolitions explosive,
Mm,
or there are other, you know, fanciful ideas that have been thrown out there for
sure.
the heck is it?
Really bad explosives.
Sorry?
Really bad explosives.
Really dangerous explosives.
I mean, it's a nice, serviceable, high explosive. You need something to set it off, so uh, it's like
Russian destructive explosive.
Russian destruct. Yeah, uh, that's one nationality I have not heard associated with the R and RDX. Russia. No, I haven't heard that. To my knowledge, they were busy doing other things in the 20s and 30s when this was being developed. But no, it's a. I mean, it's you can do all sorts of helpful civilian things in mines or building demolition or whatnot, as well as making warheads.
Right.
You know, you can put it into conventional munitions, and of course, you can use it to trigger the good stuff of a nuclear weapon.
The good stuff.
So, yeah,
Hmm.
implode the sphere of fissile material and send it supercritical, and away we go. Yeah.
Hmm. When we were at dinner yesterday, we were talking a little bit about the voluminous instruction and regulation manuals that are associated with your field. And we didn't have time to dig into it, but I remembered saying, well, okay, do we need volumes and volumes of sort of excessive safety protocols in order to avoid a Chernobyl type event? I mean, is it sort of like you have to have an
I mean,
excess?
at Pantex, we would not have a Chernobyl type event.
Hmm.
We would have an explosion,
Mm-hmm.
and then there would not be. I mean, Chernobyl was I mean, it's a power plant, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a different beast altogether. So it was a
Sure.
sort of long, drawn out meltdown process,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to, yeah, accidentally setting off a warhead.
Oops.
Oops. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think my question is more general. I mean, just with your experience of how these different agencies and entities operate, um, given the factor of human error,
Right.
in order to avoid in order to avoid the really bad, do
Mhm.
we have to sort of just introduce a certain amount of, call it bullshit regulation, in order to keep a, in order to keep us well away from the zone of a real whoops?
That's certainly the approach that's taken because it seems safest to the people involved. Because no one actually wants to do the experiment of trying anything and saying, "Well, let's try to poke around and see what an acceptable level of risk would be."
Hmm. Right. Right. You could just say, well, in that world, risk is unacceptable.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
huh.
Which, of course, you can't ever actually. First of all, you can't ever actually get rid of it. Second of all, you can't ever actually know what all the risks are. And that, both of those things are things that the bureaucratic mindset tries to push as far behind some sort of mental block as possible.
Ah, that you never know all the things that are dragging you towards disaster, and you can never quite anchor yourself so securely that
Right.
their pull will never be felt.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's one way to put it. Yes.
Dang.
Yeah.
That sounds exhausting to work in that world, is it?
Well, that's the thing is that I don't work in that world. That
Ah,
that world, generates computer-based trainings that I have to waste my time with. That I've spent a lot of time in the last 2 months wasting my time with them.
mm-hmm.
And then aside from that, the spirit of it does kind of pollute what I do.
Uh-huh.
In terms of there are too many percent, but but at some point that just bleeds off into the disease of large organizations.
Right.
at this stage of human development where
It's
we've
more than the groundwater that gets poisoned
right,
at Pantex.
right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, any large organization generates rules and people whose only job is to fiddle with the rules and deal with transgressions of the rules. And we haven't reached the point in, human development where we, where it's commonplace to systematically and frequently prune the rules down and actually try to make them targeted and helpful as opposed to just kind of wrapping ourselves in this, comfortable hair shirt of rules, comfortably uncomfortable. It's just, that's one of the ways that human nature can go wrong.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Huh. Huh.
It's the opposite of the 19th century where it was sort of anything goes. And, you just sort of, let's slap these rails down and let's, send this train to Utah and, let's have a transcontinental railroad, you know, build it fast or build it right. Build it fast. That's not even a question.
What's right? Yeah.
Yeah.
What's right is now.
Yeah.
Having this railroad here today.
And one train out of 20 derails. Life is like that. So,
Right. Beats dying of scurvy. Yeah.
right.
Why not die in a train wreck?
I mean, it's faster. Yeah.
It's faster. Just like our rail, baby.
Right. Right.
Oh,
One thing, well, I mean, I suppose this is probably not true, but to bring the Oregon Trail into it, right? If you're gliding by on a train, you're looking at some poor stooge who's still out there with his wagon, the last of his breed, and you're like, well, at least I'm not going to die of dysentery.
right. Dysentery, starvation.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to make it to San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
What happens to me there? I don't know.
Right. But worry about that when I get there.
Yeah.
Huh. What so I mean, since the last time you've been here, golly, there's a lot happened. So
Jeez. Yeah.
I mean, so you were here, so you were definitely here in February. So that means you were here like a month into the new administration.
That's right.
And now you're here a year into the new administration.
Right. And having worked at a federal facility and been through one shutdown, and I was definitely looking stuff up a few days ago and like, are we going to have another shutdown? I haven't heard anybody talk about it. And then I saw that like, yes, but my department has had its budget passed, which is amazing, actually. The Congress is even that functional. I mean, you talk about a retarded, dysfunctional organization that cannot do its basic, the United States Congress. And it's like, it's gotten to the point where we don't even let ourselves recognize that Congress is the problem, because Congress is always the problem. And, and then we get caught up in like, well, we should have protests and we should stop ICE from doing, like, what is ICE doing? ICE is out there attempting to enforce federal law.
Mm-hmm.
If you want federal law to be different, you have Congress has a different law. Congress has gotten a free pass for decades and decades. Like, the immigration problem is a Congress problem. Do we want these people here or not? Do we want amnesty or not? For who? For how many? What do we do with the people that we don't want here? That's Congress's job. And Congress has punted it for my whole lifetime because they're incompetent and they're dysfunctional in 17,000 different ways. And they all need to be voted out of office. But that's
I mean, it's not particularly, I mean, the dysfunction of Congress cannot be laid at the feet of the junior senator from Arkansas who got elected last year.
That's
right. I mean, voted out of office. No, it almost seems as if the Congress needs to be retrained, or they need to take their own role more seriously. I mean, and
Do what?
Stop taking vacations.
Well, I mean, that's not, I mean, that's a red herring, right? You know, even if they're only there 8 months a year and they're, you know, jetting around, you know, living the life, they could at least be doing useful work for 8 months. They're not doing that.
Yeah.
Not doing. I mean, if you want to do that, okay, like I need this to clear my head. I'm like, we'll start with that. We'll negotiate the stuff like vacations later. But it's like, okay, first of all, there's this thing called the Constitution, and there's this thing called Article 1, which lays out all the stuff that you are both need to do and can do and can't do, because there's this thing called the 10th Amendment, which is apparently a dead letter at this point, that says if Article 1, you know, in the particular case of Congress, if it's not in Article 1, Congress can't do it. They should not be legislating about it. And if they do legislate about it, the Supreme Court should throw it out. That seems to be a dead letter. Then, of course, the same is true of Article 2 in the executive branch, which is, well, the subject at hand right now. But they also need to bloody pass a budget. And they don't do that. That's like the kid who shows up at kindergarten and is not toilet trained. I mean, that's not doing your job. You have a job. You have more than one job, but this is your basic job. And if you know, I mean, I'm not going to pass myself off as an expert in British history or anything, but that's the spirit of this. That language in the Constitution about the budget comes from the way that the United Kingdom was supposed to work. The House of Commons, because we're going to extract all this cash from the Commons, therefore the House of Commons should be able to say, can you spend this money or not? And the House of Commons is supposed to be limiting the king from extracting all this money from his subjects so he can go fight wars and build buildings. It's usually wars. It's usually wasting money on wars and like trying to cover himself in glory and blah blah blah. That was the mindset. Now, of course, the problem is that Congress wants to spend money. Congress passed a law in the 70s that said the president can't not spend the money that we tell you to spend, because we want all our pork barrel projects to go through, because we want all this money to be spent in our districts. So
do you think that was the key moment? That was the watershed moment when Congress started to,
I mean, it was a milestone along the path, I think.
Sort of weaken its own role in the
I mean,
authority structure of the country?
That era, I mean, that era was, of course, you know, the Watergate era and the whole, you know, we need to punish the executive branch because of Richard Nixon. So we, you know, we're going to pass this anti-impoundment law that, you know, the president has to spend all the money we say he needs to spend. He can't impound any of it. You know, that was part of that whole parcel of stuff. But but that in the background, or, you know, on another track, and maybe a more important track, you know, there's the whole, you know, you could date it all the way back to Woodrow Wilson. You could maybe even date it back to Teddy Roosevelt. The whole progressive movement, you know, the original run of the term progressive from the early, you know, 20th century. And then definitely in the post-war era. Well, I mean, definitely in the New Deal, and then definitely in the post-war era, and definitely in the 60s. The whole Congress abdicating its legislative power and, you know, handing it over to agencies. Oh, you can make the rules for this. Oh, you can make the rules for this. Oh, you can make the rules for this. Which means that there are now dozens of entities that just sit around, you know, that have a certain, you know, substantial proportion of their staff sitting around doing rulemaking.
And these are agencies that belong to the to the executive branch.
That's right. Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Yeah. Because we don't anticipate, you know, our structure as it's laid down doesn't anticipate, you know, agencies directly reporting to Congress, for better or for worse.
Agencies reporting to Congress does sound inefficient.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you have 535 bosses. That does sound unworkable, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. I remember.
Although one person in charge of the how many 100,000 or million federal employees? Also sounds unworkable, doesn't it? We elect a president and then blame him for everything that, goes on at every, it's like blaming the Pope for every last, priest that molests a child somewhere in the world. It's not possible.
To lay that at his feet. He's just
well, it's not. I mean, you can lay it at his feet. You can do whatever you choose to, but you can't. He can't actually fix that himself. He can hire people, and they can hire people, and they can hire people, which is not really how the church is divinely constituted. But that's a debate you could have with someone who's more into ecclesiology. But I mean, if you look at the whole first millennium, that's not how the church was put together.
No. Yeah, the instinct for bureaucracy seems to have been at least dormant at that point.
Well, so let's close a few parentheses. All right, we're not talking about the church right now. That was just an aside. I'm not even talking about the executive branch right now. That's just an aside. Back to Congress. What does Congress do?
Yeah, well, what is Congress not doing that it should be? Is it just a matter of having cooperation?
There needs to be an actual debate, a good old, antebellum. The names of everybody is escaping me right now. I can't even remember the students that I, loved so dearly, a very short while ago. But, Clay and Webster and all those guys need to get out there on the floor of the Senate and debate the living crap out of it, and these get published in the newspapers. And what consensus are we going to come to? What compromise of 1850 are we going to come to about the left feels this way and the right feels this way? We're going to have to find some sort of middle ground and move forward. Or we'll have a civil war. Civil wars kill hundreds of thousands of people. Sounds like a bad idea. Let's not have a civil war. Let's try to find some other way to do this. And that's not, and our Congress is completely incompetent to do that.
And it's not even something that they really consider to be part of their mandate anymore. It seems to be what
I guess not. I mean, you talk to people so the woman who is I can't possibly remember the name. Is she a senator now? There was a long-term congresswoman who was related to the former vice president. Why I can't remember any of these names. This is ridiculous.
Pelosi?
What?
Pelosi?
No.
Who was
here in Wyoming.
Oh, Wyoming.
Liz Cheney.
Liz Cheney.
Yeah.
Was defeated in the Republican primary, which is all that matters in Wyoming, by Harriet Hagman. However you pronounce her name. Is she a senator now? Or is she still a rep? The rep.
Hageman is a representative, I believe.
She's still the representative.
Yeah.
Okay. So in any case, yeah. So people like that. So obviously she has not been in Congress for long because that didn't happen very long ago.
Right.
So people like that. I mean, I think they appealed to not, anywhere near the depth of historical reference that I'm trying to put into this.
Right.
But they do sort of, talk like they're going to do something like this. But they're going to, they talk like they're going to introduce bills and do this, that, and the other thing, for sure, which then has to get past committees and the Speaker of the House, and which is where stuff goes to die, just like in Star Wars Episode 1. But
yeah, one of the mistakes in that movie was to get dragged into too many committees.
Parliamentary,
senatorial hearings.
Right.
Yeah, that's not really why people tune into Star Wars.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
That's right.
In a different context, it actually probably could be interesting. And my understanding, I haven't seen the show, but my understanding is that the Star Wars show Andor actually does this pretty well. It shows the background functionings of, imagines the human realities of the Star Wars universe, but it was a different format, TV. It was for a different audience, basically adults.
Yeah.
It's really not a summer the summer Star Wars blockbuster was
No.
not was,
And there's also no
was
Jar
not
Jar
meant for
Binks,
this.
I assume.
Uh,
Yeah.
Poorly executed.
Yeah.
Someone once said the prequels were a basic good idea that was very poorly executed, and I think that's true. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
anyway, but back to Congress. So you're saying that once upon a time, Congress really believed itself to be wearing the mantle of being in charge of directing the vision, the direction of the country.
Right. I mean,
And
Cicero,
mm-hmm,
you know, a senator was a senator, and people actually read ancient history at that point, and
mm-hmm,
they knew their model was the Roman Senate at its best,
mm-hmm.
really, with Cicero and peers of Cicero out there on the floor debating things, discussing things, you know, and allowing themselves to have their mind changed and come to an actual consensus of some kind. And then they go instruct the consuls, go to the prison and execute that guy because he's a danger to the state or whatever.
Right.
Right. You know, whatever item of great moment is affecting the republic right now.
Mm-hmm.
We need to have a clear-minded discussion about it, and we need to, you know, reach a consensus and act on that consensus decisively.
Mm.
Because there are many forces in the world that could destroy the order that our ancestors have given to us, and we need to not let that happen.
It's easy to imagine why people would be corrupted in their attempts to gain power. It's harder to it's harder to imagine for me why an organization would corrupt itself by basically castrating itself, by giving away, compromising its power. I mean, how does Congress ever say, "Oh yeah, we are delegating more and more to agencies which actually answer to a different branch of government, and we sort of collectively sigh and let that happen." I mean,
Yeah. And I mean, every
does anyone ever
Republican runs
surrender
against
power?
that every election cycle, and has for decades. And what's happened, despite however many periods when, you know, the president and both houses of Congress were Republican, nothing happens.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing happens. And, you know, why would somebody give away power?
You can trade it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they're selling it. They are probably the highest priced prostitutes in the country.
Well, yeah, especially with all the lobbyist groups for
Yeah.
Congress.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
there's like 2 lobbyist groups per Congress member for just Medicare alone, or health care.
Yeah.
The healthcare industry has over a thousand, So, like for every member of the House, there's over 1,000 groups lobbying for some aspect of the healthcare exercise.
Groups lobby. I mean, 1,000 lobbyists would be bad enough. That's 2 for every Congress critter.
That's just healthcare. That's not all the other.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Like APAC.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's
that's not the lobbies for different ethnic groups inside the country, lobby groups for
lobby for every
national
different industry.
interests.
Yeah. Every different industry.
Right. Air, roads, cars, energy, agriculture,
Like
liquor, guns.
Food manufacturing. Yeah. Everything.
like each congressperson probably has like 100 people talking to them all the time.
What does?
Each congress member probably has like 100
Oh.
people.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
Interesting. So probably you feel there's so many people plying you for interest and favors. You probably don't feel weak. You probably don't feel powerless because there's so many people coming to you.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Well,
You've abdicated your real power. You've abdicated what would make you a person that would be remembered as someone who actually benefited the human race.
Hmm.
But who thinks about that? Not enough people.
Yeah.
Not enough people actually act on that thought.
There are people out there who do. Yeah. But given the reality, those people might be intrinsically motivated not to seek a career in Washington.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the other thing. We're not, there's nothing about the process that recruits those people to be elected legislators.
Okay. There's nothing in the Washington machine that basically puts an ad out for statesmen. They might put ads out for politicians, but statesmen are harder to find.
Yes.
Oof.
Statesmen. Hard to recruit, hard to identify.
Hard to identify.
Yeah. And then if they do really try to do something, they can get shot. But that's another story.
Some of them do get shot. Yeah. Interesting. So what could be done to the problem, it seems, Paul, that you're saying the problem is that Congress, to include both the House and the Senate, essentially over the last 100 years has been co-opted by the lobby, and it has been weakened by a loss of vision for its own duty to the country.
Yeah, I think that sums a lot of it up.
What can be done to fix it? It sounds like Congress is a sort of an ailing patient and needs
Right.
to be reformed.
I mean, if you then take a step back and try to look at, Americans, or I mean, for that matter, the developed world as a whole, what's going to be done? The moneyed interests are going to continue to dominate things because no one else apparently has the motivation. There is no, certainly. Yeah, I mean, that's the question, right? So I'm listening right now to a audiobook, a lengthy, intriguing, and supremely depressing audiobook about the Spanish conquest of the Incas in the 16th century. So Francisco Pizarro lands in Peru with like 200 guys. He marches, he rides, or they lead their horses because it's in the Andes. They lead their horses up to a Inca city called Cajamarca. So the triumphant Inca, who has just won a civil war, has sent his generals south and conquered the capital because, his half-brother, rival Inca, was down there. But he was up with the professional troops because at that point the Inca Empire was trying to expand northward. So he was crowned up there by the troops. Sounds very much like Roman history. He marches south to confront his rival, but he sends his generals ahead of him, and they actually win the fight and execute his half-brother. And he's completely triumphant and marching in an army of like 50,000 people. So Pizarro holes up in this building in this town with 150 riders, and wants to talk to this guy with whatever Indians have learned in 6 months or something to speak enough Spanish to like be interloculators. I mean, this whole situation is insane.
That is wild to me. I've been reading some of these historical accounts, and like they keep mentioning exactly these interpreters, these translators, and I think, how did these translators get going?
Yeah.
Right? Like, yeah. Like in the second year that the French fur trappers were trying to negotiate access up river systems in the St. Lawrence to get trade. And then this book mentioned, and whatever the translators could get across. I'm like, the translators? How do where do these translators learn
What's a translator?
enough to conduct business negotiations
never met
in
each other.
2 or 3 different languages
Yeah.
in the last 12 months?
Right.
Fantastic.
Yeah. But anyway, so they're holed up in this building, and Pizarro wants to talk to the Inca, and the Inca's like, cool. I mean, you guys are weird. You have beards, and you've got really pale skin, and some of you even have red hair. So you're kind of freaky, and that's interesting. But there's 150 of you, maybe. I mean, he may not even know there's that many. But, so he comes in his litter with like 5,000 dudes out of his army of 50,000. Because he's just like, he's just marching with an army of 50,000 for escort.
Right.
Because he's the Inca. And it's an incredibly wealthy empire. And with 150 dudes, Pizarro mows down like 4,000 or 5,000.
Whoa.
because they have horses, they have steel armor, they have steel swords. They're not even doing it with firearms. They're doing it with where is the place in? It's not Valencia, but with the place in Spain that makes the really good steel. You know, some of that development happened with the Moors and and the Spanish, of course, the Reconquista. They took, among other things, that technology. It was just really good steel swords. I think and they mow down this empire, mow it down. They have dozens of battles where they kill thousands of Indians, and there's like 70, 100, maybe 200 Spaniards. It's insane.
So they're not even taking that many I mean, at that number, is it like, what are they taking? Like 1 or 2 casualties per battle?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a lot of these early battles, they don't lose anybody. It's like the horses are roughed up some.
That's
nuts. And
Wait, hold on,
eventually the Incas get better, but it takes too long for them to get good at fighting the Spaniards.
What causes the negotiations to break down? Was it simply like, hey, we want your country? Well, it's not for sale, and okay, so we're fighting?
It doesn't even get that far.
Oh.
I mean, it's just lies. And that's the thing, is like, they're coming here as agents of the most Catholic King of Spain and Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, and they're just criminals. They're just bloodthirsty criminals. They want gold, and they do not care how many people they kill to get it. Oof. They don't care. They just want gold. And they
So the emperor was called what? The Grand Inca or something?
He was the Inca.
Inca.
He was just the Inca. Yeah. So they capture the Inca, and they hold him for several months, and they talk to him, and they're like, "We want gold." He's like, "Gold? Cool. You see this room?" And the room's like, I don't know, 20 by 20 by 12 or something like that. I'm gonna fill this room up to as far as I can reach on the wall with gold. How does that sound? They're like, great. And they kill him anyway. And they take all of these like artwork, because they don't have a monetary system. They don't have coins.
Right.
They don't have, bullion and a vault somewhere. They just have artwork. They just have temples to the sun with gold plating, and massive solar discs plated with gold and whatnot. And so the conquistadors are like, fantastic. Let's set up some furnaces and melt this down and haul it down to the coast. Like, tons of it. Tons and tons and tons and tons. And they put it on ships, and however much it goes to Spain, and and they all become wealthy grandees, and then they enslave their Indians to go mine more. Well, mostly at that point they're mining silver. They found really, really rich silver deposits, and they can grow this coca plant. Yeah. So it's just, and they just don't care. And yet that same society has really conscientious Catholic priests. There are some who aren't. But there's a lot of them who are. And they, and they write to the king, and they, they're like, this is horrible. These people are doing X, Y, and Z. But the problem is that the people doing the horrible X, Y, and Z are these supremely violent conquistadors. What are you actually going to do about it? What army are you going to raise in Spain to send to Peru in 1550 or something to go
to police Posada,
all of these super greedy people who are only here in the first place because they were like, we want gold, and we want to become, instead of, landless peasants or whatever we were in the Extremadura in Spain, apparently the worst part of Spain, in terms of fertility and everything else. Let's go abroad, kill a bunch of people, take their stuff, and become, wealthy noblemen. And you just can't turn that down if you have a certain mindset.
Not if you're eating dirt back at home.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a certain amount of ambition in the human heart to say, no, I got to do better than this.
There's no more Moors to, plunder. Our dad did that. Or, or somebody else's dad did that, and he's now, living the easy life in a castle, and,
Right. Whoa.
Yeah.
No bueno. Wow. Okay, so Right. So these priests are maybe
So you
appealing
can
to
see
the
the
king.
parallel with Congress, right?
What's there left to plunder? Hold on, but I see the parallel with Congress, but I gotta just understand these battle tactics a little bit. So you've got
Okay.
150, 200 guys.
Yeah.
You're facing 5,000,
Yeah.
5,000 enemies armed with what, like obsidian lined
Maces.
maces?
With battle axes that aren't long enough
Uh-huh.
for cavalry, because I mean, what do the Incas have? They have llamas. You're not war llama is not a thing.
Right. There's no war llama.
There are no war llamas. There are no war alpacas.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they have. That's their livestock. And guinea pigs. They have guinea pigs.
They do have guinea pigs.
That's right. So you have guinea pigs living around your shack, and every so often, if you get really hungry and you know I haven't had enough protein this week, you know reach.
We're gonna
for a
de-guinea. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but still, I mean, okay, so they have nothing like they have no shafted weapons that can actually
That's
hold
right.
back
That's
a
right.
cavalry
It's a
charge.
major, and unfortunately, it takes them like 25 years. But there is a scare, long after the initial conquest, which the initial conquest is in the 1530s.
Mm-hmm.
So in the 1550s, if I'm remembering right, maybe even 1560s, there is the scare at one point where the residual Inca state, which has been driven off east of the Andes and is kind of, the foothills down into the beginnings of the jungle.
Right.
Because even the Incas are scared to death of the jungle people because they do, in fact, eat you.
Right.
Yeah. And the Spanish were like, after some, abortive expeditions that killed thousands more, Inca peasants, because Inca was really the name of a tribe that had,
Right.
Conquered everybody
That
else.
done well.
But all these other tribesmen who were just pressed into service to haul crap, down the slopes and into the jungles, where I mean, they're people who live at 10,000 feet.
Mm-hmm.
So they go down into the Amazon jungle, they just start dying as fast as the Spaniards do, if not faster.
Because of the diseases.
Because of the diseases, because of the climate,
Mm-hmm.
all the stuff that they're not acclimated to. Yeah. So it's horrible. Like, the guy going off to try to find El Dorado, who was like, Francisco Pizarro was the leader. So this guy was his brother, and his brothers were just awful people. Awful people. One of them was one of the few casualties in, like, I mean, at one point, the Inca leads a rebellion, like, the third one since, the one that gets executed even after he delivers the room full of gold. That guy, starts off being friends with us because, of course, the Spaniards are also playing off this, hey, there's just been a civil war. So these Northerners are coming down, and the Southerners are like, hey, these weird guys with beards who are apparently invincible might be better off than these Northerners who are going to come down and oppress us. They were wrong. They were tragically wrong. But they played that game for a few years, and they crowned somebody from that side of the empire Inca, and dealt with him well for a while, a year or something, and then but they just keep pestering people for, hey, there's got to be more treasure around somewhere. No, you've stolen it all already. But they keep, like, every leader they can find, every tribal chief, every Inca administrator, and the Inca himself, like, you've got to have more gold squirreled away somewhere. They lock the Inca up somewhere and, like, literally urinate in his face. Like, this guy's an absolute freaking monarch, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's like the emperor of China.
Right.
You in the august presence, you must do blah blah blah, and the three kowtows and the whatever, right? And these guys are like treating him like
worse than
a
swine
condemned prisoner. Yeah.
Right. Where's the goal?
Somehow he gets out of that.
Right.
And he slips out of the city of Cusco, which is the Inca capital, and he leads a rebellion. And he probably amasses over 100,000 folks.
100,000.
And there's probably 70 Spaniards in Cusco
At this point.
and they besiege it. And the Spaniards outlast the siege. It's insane.
Mm-hmm.
It's insane. I mean, the Incas set the whole city on fire.
Right.
And the Spaniards are trapped in these buildings. And at one, there's this roof that just refuses to burn. It's just, I mean, some of it is just, you get to the point where you really do like, okay, these are incredibly awful people, and it's an offense to, you know, Jesus of Nazareth and everything that he stood for these people to claim his protection
Right.
in what they were doing. And yet, there's some of it just, I mean, it gets to the point, it's like, somebody was pulling strings. Why was this allowed to happen?
How are these guys?
Why was this encouraged to happen?
Huh.
I mean, there were just enough places where somebody could have figured out something, you know. And I keep postponing the whole, you know, finally in the 1550s or 1560s, you know, because what I've been describing so far happened in, like, you know, between 1536 and 1539. You know, by 1539, you know, the last actual organized resistance across the empire dies out.
Right.
That Inca, you know, fortunately lives through this. He goes into exile in this place in the east that I was talking about.
Yep.
Establishes his own little state, and it's just too hard to get to it.
Yep.
They send a couple of expeditions, and they just can't get there.
Right.
And you know, and the Inca does, you know, lay some. In fact, they do get there, and the Inca and a lot of his people manage to slip away, and they can't find him. And they're like, okay, we're down here in the jungle, we're dying, because, you know, the diseases are a lot more effective than the Incas are at killing us. And they go back to Cusco, and, you know, they just give up.
File it away.
The guy has his own little, you know, enclave, but he makes the mistake of taking in like 7 Spaniards who have been part of a civil war, because people like this can't possibly not have a civil war with each other, right? Somebody's got to find some reason to kill each other.
Right.
So these people, you know, flee. They're the losers of the Civil War. They kind of deserve to be the losers. But anyway, so he takes them in.
7.
6 or 7, yeah, 6 or 7 of them. Well, I mean, this is not outrageous, but, you know, at this point, he mostly knows what he's dealing with, and in fact, he starts using them to train his Incas.
Right.
To do Spanish things.
Right.
And they're like, I mean, this guy's harmless. He's got this tiny little, you know, split. I mean, what am I talking about? These are people without a conscience. These are people without a conscience. But they actually get friendly. Like, they get to the point where, you know, he shares meals with them, he eats with them, you know, they're there for, I guess, a few years. And then they get the idea into their head that, like, well, you know what? I bet we could go back to Peru and, you know, be accepted back in Spanish society if we kill the Inca. So they assassinate this guy. I mean, like, you know, you read the Inferno, right? Where are these guys? These guys are frozen at the very bottom of hell. That's where these guys are. And they, you know, and for once, they actually get what's coming to them, and they're chased down by the Inca's guards, and all of them die.
Right.
Okay. Well, that's good. At least that happened. But, you know, this is founded on bloodshed, and these people are incredibly exploitative, and they have, you know, they've parceled out this, like, empire that's, you know, well over 1,000 miles from north to south along the Andes.
Right.
And they're, you know, and they're like every, you know, bit of oppressing the peasants that, you know, any story has ever conceived of, they are doing. Right. They must produce too much produce. They must produce too much, you know, too many manufactured goods. They must produce stuff that they can't possibly grow because they don't have the seeds for it. But it's in, you know, a Spanish bylaw that this is a standard, you know, this is the standard boilerplate for, you know, what your peasants should provide a lord. Where are they going to get pigs from? They don't have pigs. And they must provide this much, you know, metal, and they must provide this much coca, blah blah blah. And coca only grows in, like, you know, what boss? We live 500 miles from the nearest place where you can grow coca. Screw you. You just need to give me coca. That's insane. It's absolutely insane. And then at the same time, there's, like, people writing letters all the time to the King of Spain, like, this is unconscionable. They're treating these human beings like animals. Nominally, they're supposed to be free Spanish subjects. What is with this? And the king will occasionally write stuff, and then it comes over to the New World, and these bloodthirsty settlers all rebel, and, you know, the king eventually prevails by watering stuff. You know, I mean, it's not the king, because of course he's in freaking Spain. So he sent a viceroy, and the viceroy finally, you know, brings enough people over to his side to triumph by saying, okay, you can just do 90% of the exploitation that you're doing, and you can still be good subjects of the King of Spain. And that's good enough for them. And of course, they says that, and then really they continue extracting everything they used to, or at least 95% of it.
It's not good statecraft.
It's not good statecraft.
What's the name of this book?
The Conquest of the Incas.
The Conquest.
I forget the name of the author.
How does, I mean, I still just can't quite conceive. I mean, you're 5,000 guys or 50,000 guys or 100,000 guys, and you're facing down a group of 200, 150, 70, and you just can't say to yourself, look, some of us might have to perish here, but we are just
they did
exterminate these people.
They always did. I mean, the only times that they did a few times wipe out an entire group of like 70 Spaniards or something. They did that a few times. How did they do it? They found a way to box them into a canyon. The Andes has a lot of very deep canyons. And these people are like, in Dungeons and Dragons terms, these guys are dwarfs. Like the Incas and their, subject people in the highlands, their movement rate does apparently not go down on slopes. They just their best tactic in a battle is to get up on a 45-degree slope where the horses can't follow them, and then yell and throw rocks. Well, that's their second best tactic, because their best tactic is to get them into a box canyon with like nearly vertical walls, and just shut off the entrance. They might have to do it by just jamming it with their own bodies, but hopefully they've shoved some rocks in the way. Cut them off on both sides, and then roll boulders on them. Which is where the rest of your force is.
So they didn't have ranged weapons of any kind.
They didn't have good enough ones. They didn't have English longbows.
Okay.
They had slings, and they had some fairly good slings, and they started, adapting those to trip men and horses, but they apparently didn't get far enough with that.
But initially,
and they started recruiting Amazonian tribesmen who did, besides being cannibals, also they had wood, they had actual trees, so they could actually make bows. That were something like long enough to, go through armor sometimes.
Punch through armor,
or find a joint, whatever.
But initially, everything was just bouncing off the armor.
Yeah, and they did all have slings. As far as the author is, from his sources is describing the situation.
But the Spaniards would have been wearing something that not complete plate armor, but only a generation or two removed from that. So
yes, a generation or two removed from that, a generation or two improved from that. So all the good parts, but less of the weight. Really is basically what we're talking about. So, and of course it was the century in which firearms would really start taking. Maybe that's the 17th century. Hard to say, but yeah, it took the Incas too long. Again, trees. There are not a lot of trees on the Altiplano. There are not a lot of trees, above the snow line in the Andes. That's not how that works. So it was finally when they were, forced into this sort of Eastern enclave, that somebody like, hey, you know what? Pikes would be great.
Pikes, halberds.
The Spanish were like, oh crap, they're going all, Swiss legionaries on us. Crap. Legionary is not the term, but again, the term is escaping me.
Halberdiers or pike.
Or the German Landsnecks or something.
Oh. I mean, it boggles the mind. It really does. 50,000 against 200. How are you laying the odds?
Yeah. How can you not? I mean, and especially when they had them penned in, a stone city that they themselves had built.
Nobody left a secret entrance.
Yeah. I mean,
we forgot to build a tunnel, boys.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he describes it. The guy literally.
Sorry, man. We never thought we'd have to try to sneak in.
Right. For real. I mean, the guy. At some point where they're besieging a building. Well, actually, the Incas have taken over a building inside Cusco, and the Spanish send 5 guys. There's one guy who apparently is in a real life Douglas Fairbanks movie, where he's just he is charging all the way up this stairway up 6 flights or whatever, and he's just killing people the entire way, and they can't stop him. Whoa. And this thing is probably jammed with 100 guys, and he is throwing people out the window and whatever.
Right.
and he makes it all the way to the top
Right.
and throws this, and then and has his boss fight with, this, big Inca sergeant, and and kills him too. It's just,
Right. Right.
yeah, it boggles the mind.
The Incas just not very good at.
I'm sorry?
Seems like the Incas just aren't very good at innovation.
They weren't good enough. They weren't fast enough.
I don't know. It just seems like, I don't know, if a Greek was in a situation like that, they'd be like, all right, guys, get me this by this date, arm yourselves like this, and we're going to win.
I mean, it's tempting, right? It's tempting to conclude that if, because this did take years.
Yeah.
There was, and again, it was the 16th century, and there was, probably, I mean, from Quito down to northern Chile, that's got to be at least 1,500 miles. And they conquered all of that. And it took a while. And there was rebellion, and they had to, go all the way around the country and try to, press all of those pieces of it.
Did the
You would
Incas
think
believe
that
that?
the Greek city-states would have innovated faster. Maybe that's true.
I mean, did the Incas believe that these guys might be gods, and so
Oh, there was that.
all the resistance was somewhat timid, hesitant?
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't go into that at length, but they did have their creator god. What was his name? Wiracoche or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Did have a beard and did have pale skin
Mm-hmm.
and had just apparently walked off into the Pacific Ocean at one point. Super weird.
So they thought these might be his sons coming back or
Yeah.
something.
In fact, I think they called the Spaniards by that name for a while. They called him by the name of the god.
Mm.
Those are the Viracoches. Whatever again. I'm not.
Okay, so there might be some really heavy psychological intimidation.
Yes. There is that possibility.
Does the author say whether or not the culture was fundamentally traditional and that they believe that tradition?
Oh, he goes further.
Oh,
He goes to say that the mass, the hoi polloi, the peasantry was incredibly, they just wanted enough food to survive and enough chicha beer to have a good time every so often, and they had no other ambitions. Just, I mean, this is still the 70s, so he didn't have to deal with political correctness. I'm sure he'd be excoriated publishing a book that said something like that today. But yeah, basically he says Indians down to the present day, because thank God there's still some,
mm-hmm.
have very much still that same mindset. Yeah, I'm still going to go out here with my hand plow, with my foot plow. I'm going to jam a pointed stick into the ground
With my foot.
And plant my corn and potatoes and do my thing.
Mm-hmm.
Occasionally boil a guinea pig for a good time.
Now it's a party.
That's a party. That's right. Chica and guinea pigs.
Yeah.
Party.
Yeah. Yeah, we're boiling chi-chi here, so we know it's the new year. Yeah. Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, interesting. So there just wasn't the cultural values around independence and
Not in the population at large.
mm-hmm.
The Inca tribe themselves had more, I mean, those people did eventually develop tactics.
Mm-hmm.
Those people did develop adaptations.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them, given the enormous handicap of, I can't beat 200 of you with an army of 100,000, even in that circumstance, they were actually diplomatically fairly shrewd.
Right. Yeah.
This enclave lived on for decades. And the guy, the guy could first of all read the signs of the times that, this pressure from the king, this pressure from bishops, this pressure from priests who actually wanted to serve Jesus Christ in some sort of way, was actually changing the tenor of the times. And he could sort of string them along and give them some of what they wanted. And what they really wanted was for him to come out of his enclave and be a tame Inca, like some of his family had done.
Uh-huh.
And then they would, they would have no further, native, center of resistance,
Mm-hmm.
um, unless another one of his family members stepped forward and became Inca, which was always a weak point in the Spanish plans in that regard, because there were, the Huayna Copac, Huayna Coche. There was an Inca who had just died to set off the Civil War,
Right.
who had been, the most powerful Inca of all, was, trying to conquer Ecuador and southern Colombia, what it is now, to extend this already incredibly sprawling empire. And he had knows how many descendants, right? So,
Sure.
so all of those people were candidate Incas.
Right. He Genghis Khan'd it.
Yeah, he sure did. Yeah, yeah. Maybe he was a little less violent about it than Genghis Khan, but he definitely had a lot of concubines.
Mm-hmm.
And some people considered concubine a decent job. So
There are more painful lives
there are, yeah,
in the ancient world.
that's right.
Yes.
This was functionally the ancient world. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Functionally, this was the ancient world.
Yeah.
And there are probably more painful jobs out there.
Yeah. I mean, the last Chinese emperor in the beginning of the 20th century still had concubines. So it's still a thing.
Right.
I mean, there are parts of the Muslim world, I should say, that that's still at least a thing.
Right.
Very much so.
So far as I know, it's still a thing in the Arizona Strip, north of the Grand Canyon, south of Utah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, those guys.
Those guys.
Yeah. Yep. It seems like a lot to manage.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you're basically an HR director.
Gosh, yeah. Yeah.
You're an HR director.
Have you seen those advertisements for Polygamy Porter? Bring some home for the wives.
I have given a speech about polygamy porter.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah. It was
actually
it was while I was a student at this college.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
a good
I gave a
context.
speech advocating for the multiple advantages of domestic labor.
Nice. Was this as part of the rhetoric class, or
This was part of the rhetoric class.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
for Dr. Virginia Arbery was not part of the faculty at that point?
She was not. No, my girlfriend was present for that speech, though.
Yeah.
I'm not married to her.
Yeah. I mean, these might be complete.
You have to be careful with these rhetoric.
Be a complete coincidence.
Yeah, you
but-
got to be careful with these assignments. Yeah, I ran too far with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, my basic argument was that you could rotate laundry, vacuuming, and
Yeah.
dishes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Are there any good Spaniards?
I'm sorry.
Are there any good Spaniards down there?
Were there any good Spaniards? Well, yeah. There were. The most famous figure from that era. He didn't go to Peru. He had been in Guatemala. So Bartolome de las Casas is the most famous of these ecclesiastics who wrote vigorously about, we're treating these Indians worse than animals. We're treating them worse than slaves. This is unconscionable, and they deserve rights, and they deserve, a political system that basically treats them like human beings, etc. And he was far from the only one. And some of those people were in Peru. Yeah. I'm groping for names. So many names have floated by here, both Quechua and Spanish, and Baroque 16th century Spanish names.
Yeah.
Bartolome de las Casas. Okay, yes, that's already a mouthful. Francisco Pizarro. Okay, yes. So if I hear Pizarro at the name, I'm like, oh, those guys. Yeah.
But the author is basically arguing that these guys were essentially pirates.
Oh yeah.
With a commission that they then.
Yeah. They had initially in the first. I mean, Pizarro sails south. He has no idea who or what he's going to encounter.
Mm-hmm.
He has heard some sort of rumor. I'm like, apparently the place named Peru actually belongs to some tribe in Colombia.
Uh-huh.
And of course they just, grossly misapply it, send it send the name 1,000 or more miles south and apply to this area with these completely different people. Because, whatever, it's the beginning of the 16th century. Who knows what the rules are?
Sure.
There aren't any rules.
Yeah.
And of course, Cortez had just conquered Mexico, and that was, an incredible lucre, and was done with, an incredibly small amount of manpower.
Right.
And of course, they were also, exploiting that political situation where, I mean, the Aztecs were kind of bad dudes.
Right.
And their subject peoples were really kind of like bearded guys from the ocean who also resemble some deity of ours. Let's work with them. And I think in Mexico it may not have turned out as badly, although there was lots of oppression and lots of exploitation. But Peru was really just next level. So,
I get the impression that Cortez and his immediate successors did want to participate in the larger project of Spain
yeah,
around the globe.
yes,
But from what you're describing, and I'm not familiar with the history, but from what you're describing, it seems that these guys in Peru were much more of the adventurer sort
yeah,
with only personal enrichment in mind.
yes,
Yeah. Yeah. Cortez may have made mistakes, but from what I've read and seen from my trips down there, he did want to establish a civil order rather than some sort of like feudal system, just a mere feudal system.
yeah, yeah. Whereas these guys really had the idea of, I'm going to be a lord, I'm going to have a lot of people working for me, and I'm going to be very rich. I mean, Francisco Pizarro himself had to set up some sort of, civil order.
Oh, okay.
I mean, his brothers were pretty irresponsible, and a lot of the other conquistadors were really just, so a lot of the organization came from this continuous series of viceroys that were sent over from Spain.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because Pizarro, of course, so Pizarro has partners. He has a partner named Almagro, I believe. So Almagro, at one point, just marches off into Chile and tries to find gold, of course, and doesn't find much because there's only so many fabulously wealthy empires in the Americas to plunder. And you found the two of them, you're done. But they can't accept that. They have to imagine that there's just, more of it around the next mountain or in the next Indian's hut or something. Completely unrealistic. Because completely unrealistic things had happened a couple of times, therefore they must keep happening. Again, human beings. But anyway, Almagro comes back at one point. So the siege of Cusco is going on. So the really intense fighting was at the beginning, and then the Manco, the Inca, settles in for a long siege, and he's like, okay, and now there's more Spaniards coming back from Chile. Well, the one thing I can hope for is to set them against each other, because he was pretty shrewd. So, and Almagro has gotten some wind of the fact that the Inca has been treated very, 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 very badly. And one of the things the Inca had going for it, besides the fact that there were people who actually were trying to sort of be Christian in some way, shape, or form, and with some sort of political power in Spain, was also the fact that Charles V and then Philip II also kind of like, wait a minute, so you're telling me you took an absolute monarch and put him in a dark dungeon and pissed in his face? I feel uncomfortable about that. I feel deeply, deeply uncomfortable about the fact that you took a fellow absolute monarch and treated him like that. Kind of don't like that, actually. Really don't like that, actually. I would like to adjust the situation.
Interesting.
So, yeah. So Almagro, of course, knew all this and, kind of, played. So it didn't erupt into, he didn't end up getting, sucked into a civil war with Pizarro's at that point. He did later. And he was killed. Actually, yeah, one of Pizarro's, one of Francisco Pizarro's brothers executes him. And that's that leads his faction to want revenge. So they all pile into Lima, which is a city that Francisco Pizarro has built on the coast. And he's the governor. He's the man in charge. He's the one with the commission and the royal warrant and everything else. And he's been made a marquis for sake. And he's, of course, got, 4 native concubines or something like that, but that's another story. Um, so he's assassinated by, the guys on the other side. They meet him and he's just like, people have warned him, hey, Francisco, there's room. I mean, the guy's like in his 60s. He's done nothing but fight his entire life. It's like, whatever. These jerks, they're not going to actually do anything to me. And they do. So from that point on, then there's a need for, okay, the king hears about all this, like, so you're saying what? There's like 500 of you in the country, and you fought a civil war and killed 100 of each other. Like, what are you even doing? I'm making up those numbers, but they're the order of magnitude that we're talking about.
Right.
What are you even doing? So he starts taking a little bit more direct, and starts personally nominating people and sending them to freaking Peru. So from that point there is a royal representative with a little bit more power and, well, at least nominally, I don't know, on paper he has more power. And he brings all these messages and all these new laws, and like, you should treat the Indians this way, and you shouldn't force them to carry loads 1,000 miles without food and kill them all, which you've been doing. I mean, it's just insane. And of course the settlers all rebel multiple times, and again, like
against
I said,
against the royal viceroy.
Against the viceroy. So multiple times the viceroy has to collect an army in Panama, and then sail down to Peru, collect more of an army, seduce people over to his side, make concessions, and then eventually, either bloodlessly or bloodily, assert control of the province and of the colony, and then go on doing what he's doing. So, and then attempt to make things somewhat better in the face of all these hundreds of conquistador settlers who really were just here for wealth, plunder, and the occasional rape.
Don't want to get distracted.
I mean, yeah.
Wow. So they're like Wall Street bros. Right. Yeah. We're here for wealth, plunder, the occasional rape. But again, we wouldn't want to get distracted from the accrual of wealth. Got to stay sharp.
Yeah. Yeah. So a fascinating thing that so I listened to an audiobook prior to this audiobook that's a guy in Colorado who talks about Ignatian spirituality. So he's not a Jesuit. He's Father Timothy Gallagher of this Oblates of the Virgin Mary.
Okay.
Which for some reason is also 100% about Ignatian spirituality. Cool. I mean, and it's a great book. It's like his first book. I forget what the title is, but it's about, he walks you through, actually it's Ignatius's 14 Rules of Discernment. One of the best books I've ever read or listened to.
Wow. Okay.
I would strongly recommend. I mean, if you really want to get depressed by the conquest of the Incas, go ahead. The guy kind of repeats himself. He's sort of circumlocutes a bit. He's not super well organized. He's not bad. I've certainly read worse organized history books, but Father Timothy Gallagher is worth looking into.
Okay.
He does podcasts, so you can get a flavor for what he's doing. But the book is like, just like laying it out, knocking it out in order, and it's amazing.
Ah, okay.
But anyway, so I'm also reading a kind of obscure edition of the spiritual exercises.
Okay.
So I've gotten into the second week, and in this version at least, which I think this part goes back to Ignatius, why would it not? I don't think this guy in early 20th century France is making this up, or is revising this substantially to this form from what Ignatius would have originally written. But it's like, so this is the part where you have the two standards, right? Are you going to be in Satan's army, or are you going to be in Jesus' army? And what's it like being in Satan's army? Well, what's it like being in Satan's army is riches. And then everybody speaking well of you, and then arrogance. As opposed to in Jesus' army, it's about poverty, and humility is the top grade. And being held in contempt, and then humility is the top grade. Like Ignatius of Loyola in the 16th century, I'm like, wonder who he was thinking about being in Satan's army and level 1 is riches. Like, I can't imagine what type of person he might have in mind while he's writing this.
Mm.
I mean, he was that guy. I mean, maybe Ignatius of Loyola was never that guy,
Mhm.
right? But he was a soldier.
Sure.
He was a Spanish glory-seeking soldier.
Mm.
Got, severely injured, easily could have died, in the 16th century, could easily have gotten an infection in that cannonball shattered leg.
Right.
And just, been completely lost to history, a note in the parish register somewhere.
Right.
But yeah, he, not only came back from the brink, he became an entirely different person and a person of revolutionary importance. And, and he was, as we all are, responding to his times. And he could see what the problems of his times were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that parallel I find absolutely fascinating.
Uh-huh.
So
Wow.
it's weird that someone has engineered the fact that I'm reading these two books at the same time.
Sure. Troubling. Right. Hopeful that someone says, no, there is an answer. There is a prescription to not get sucked into the very real temptations. But he would have responded, like you say, he was a student of his time. He was a man of his time. He would have known the type of man who is over on the other side of the world.
Right.
Yeah.
So
raping and pillaging and oppressing.
Yeah. At the risk of using a Bill Cosby line, I told you that.
There is a risk. Yeah.
I told you that story to tell you this one, right? So why did I go on that whole? There was something of a plan. Now, did I forget the plan for long stretches of it? Yes, I did. But,
right. So speaking of Congress,
so I was speaking of Congress. Yes, I was. And you asked what it would take to fix it. I mean, one diagnosis of the situation is that we live in a post-Christian secular society, and so does everybody in Europe, even more so than us. And it's no wonder that they worship wealth because they have no spiritual basis. Our ruling class in this country has no spiritual basis. Not only the ruling class, but large swaths of the population in Europe have no spiritual basis. No wonder they worship wealth. What's going to change it? Well, I don't know. But eventually it will take people with some sort of spiritual foundation.
You think it's going to be boredom?
What?
You think boredom will change people?
Boredom? Not by itself. I think that's a state that God lets people settle into where they may become more receptive to something else. But I don't think there's anything in the intrinsic structure of boredom itself that leads out of it. I mean, I think boredom is it's one of these local minima we were talking about.
have you ever played polo? It's fantastic. If you're bored, go play polo. It'll pass the time.
Get a
Then you
horse,
can get into
get a
airplanes.
giant mallet.
Yeah. Then you can get into airplanes. Then you can get into cars. Then you can get into drugs. I mean,
Yeah.
boredom probably. People, if you're only bored, I think you're typically going to be just inventing distractions and then sophistication around the distractions you've invented, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what's that anecdote about members of the Sun Kings? So Louis the 14th,
Yeah.
right? Members of his court getting into days-long debates over whether when someone used the improper technique of scratching on the door with their specially grown fingernail, if they offended good taste when they didn't tap on the door correctly with their specially grown pinky fingernail.
Yeah.
Right? Like you had to constantly
Yes.
up your level of involvement in this artificial game.
Yes. And what period in history was that crap going on.
That would have been the
Louis the 14th reigned in the late 17th
late like
to into
1580.
the early 18th century.
Okay.
So that is the beginning of the descent into the spiritual malaise that we have, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
After, the Reformation, religious wars throughout the 16th century, culminating in the 30 Years' War. It's not completely done after the 30 Years' War, but, that's the end of major combat, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And we all agree to just, okay, we're just going to have to all, live and let live. And every prince can dictate the religion in his own territory. And we're just going to have to, give up on this, whole project of a united Christendom.
Mm-hmm.
And people inevitably, once something is taken out of the sphere of the political, most people assume it's not important anymore. So at that point, you can really date the secularization of Europe, starting in 1648. I mean, obviously, 1648 is a milepost on the road.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. So we're all hypocritical. We're all terrible Christians. We're killing each other over these doctrines, and we can't keep doing that. But as soon as we say that, we start saying the doctrines don't mean anything anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So, as always, human beings go from one extreme to another.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to stop an Aristotle's golden mean. It really is.
So narrow.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Right.
It's hard to keep your balance.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Right. Life is hard on the tightrope.
Yes.
Yeah. It takes a certain amount of strength. It takes a certain forward-looking vision. I mean, man, life is so much easier on one side or the other. You just sit down.
Just sit there on the platform.
Right.
Yeah.
But think about walking across the tightrope. You got to keep your balance. You got to have your forward vision. You can't be looking straight down. You got to look ahead.
Yeah.
And it's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard to make progress. It's even slower. It's slower than hopping down off the side and running in some direction.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Life on the tightrope is a real life on the tightrope's a real misery. 1 out of 5 stars, and only because I have to leave at least a minimum of 1 star. Right.
You wouldn't let me leave 0.
Yeah. Maybe
0.
maybe that should be something that needs more attention, is that the narrowness of the middle road ought to be recognized. Is that, it's really hard. Yeah, it's really hard to be on it. Yeah, because you're holding things in tension on either side, and it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And you have no friends. Because your friends are on one side or the other saying, well, no, you got to be on our side.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Mm.
Either that, or they've just fallen off into the net. They're just like,
Right. Yeah. Oof. Yeah. Someone asked me about my feelings about Trump. And I said, well, I want him to do well. I think.
right? Yeah.
How can you say otherwise? How can you say otherwise? I want him to do well.
Yeah.
Right.
And it would take a miracle. And, maybe it would have been an even bigger miracle for Biden to do well. Okay. But, it still would require a miracle.
That's what you should want. If you step back, you should say, no, that's what I want for every leader.
Yeah. Yeah.
Leader of every country, especially my own, of course. But
Yeah.
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 Yeah. But it's hard. Let's take a quick break.
Okay.
For it.
He was just that guy.
He just wanted it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hitler seems a little bit more. He seems so mercurial in certain ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just as easy to imagine him as a sort of raving professor.
Yes.
At some
Would've been so much
university
safer.
in Munich. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yes and no. I mean, professors.
Well, yeah, they can't influence people. I mean, yeah. Why do we have the problems we have today? Because of indoctrination of decades of university students. Okay.
Our minds are open between 18 and 22. We have our vision of the world shaped during those years in many ways. Not entirely, but certainly fundamentally.
Yeah. Well, in
Yeah.
between 14 and 18, your high school teachers have hold of you.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. Which is why I think the teaching profession in the United States, should be better compensated. You
I
attract
mean, yeah, it should
a variety
a
of
lot
high
of
caliber
things,
people.
financial and social, recognition of its importance. Yeah. I mean, we
Right.
do to some extent, but, we pay it lip service. I mean, we certainly don't make it desirable.
Yeah. I mean, for all the comedic ranting of Tim Dillon, I think he many times really hits the nail on the head. And someone asked him, "So what's going on with the future?" He said, "The future. I'll tell you what's going on with the future, and it ain't the children. We're not putting our trust in the children. It's not about the children, about AI. All the leaders of today's world think that AI is the future. That's where they want the resources going, not the children."
Right.
Oh, wait a minute.
Right.
That does really get to something fundamentally true about
Yeah.
the elite
Yeah.
of the current day, of the current moment.
Yeah.
I really think AI will be, in a certain way, some people speak of AI as both our child, but then perhaps it will become our father, right? Like they think like
Yeah.
we are the womb, like the human race is the womb of the greater intelligence, which we are now giving birth to, and then
Right.
this new intelligence shall become the father of all.
Yeah.
Isn't that, yeah.
Absurd. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you look at the investment made into AI, certainly some people are just there because they think it's the new internet, so they think they're just here for profit. I mean, that's
Yeah.
always true with with innovations, but I sense that AI has been lofted into a sort of icon status, at least for the current moment. I don't know how long its star will last.
Yeah. Yeah.
What
Well,
have you
I've
observed
heard
on your end of the world?
I'm sorry.
What have you observed from your end of the world?
I mean, at the far deep end, I remember listening to a podcast where somebody was talking about how, they believe that, a lot of tech decision makers, top level people, Elon Musk caliber people are, convinced, are actually convinced that AI is going to become, I don't know, the incarnate body of some demonic force. I'm not sure.
Oh, they're very much on the other side of it.
And they want this to happen.
Oh, they want this to happen. Oh,
Yeah.
so we're talking real hideous strength type
Yeah,
desire and belief.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, when you said demonic, I thought, oh, clear. Oh, of course they would be opposed.
And of course,
But no.
no one wants demonic. Oh, yeah, that was the second millennium.
Uh-huh.
It's the brave new world now.
Like maybe if we could just yoke our technology to a demonic intelligence, maybe we could really get cooking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Progress,
Really,
whatever that was.
yeah. Spread across the galaxy. I mean, it's one of those things like what you were saying earlier about it goes beyond profit. I'm like, yeah, but I think profit is the soil that it grows out of.
Well, it's profit is certainly the way to recruit the necessary rank and file
Yeah,
folks to participate in whatever low or baseline work that needs to be done.
yeah.
I mean, you can't. I mean, people do need to make a living. I mean, you can't. Profit is a bit of a dirty word, but making a living certainly isn't
Right,
a dirty word.
right.
Profit's not an immensely dirty word, but
Yeah, I mean, it depends. I mean,
a little bit.
There's a degree, and I don't deal with these people directly, so what's my opinion on this worth? But there's a degree to which I think Gordon Gekko really has been normalized
Oh, in a way that was not true in the
in the 80s.
80s.
Yeah,
Okay. People were sort of uncomfortable with the Gordon Gekko, and then the 80s normalized him. Like, no. This is how you should live.
this is how you should actually live. I mean, and I think it's tacit though. I mean, I think people talk a good game, and probably always will.
Mm.
Well, I mean, we won't live long enough to see, the sunset, the actual sunset of Christian influence on, the culture that we live in, the developed world. Um, even if Christianity is not true, it has had such an overwhelming influence on the culture that is the, substrate for this first world culture that we're living in. I mean,
Right.
this is the first time in history there really has been a world culture.
Sure.
People have been too isolated, and now they're not.
Mm-hmm.
So what that will continue to develop into, it's possible that 1,000 years from now, you just wouldn't recognize any Christian principle anymore as underlying things. Not the situation that we're in now.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely not.
Hmm. Do you think that
So
there's
we'll never, I don't think we won't see the day when people won't be at least somewhat itchy about profit for profit's sake.
mm-hmm. itchy about unfairness or
Yeah.
cruelty?
Yeah. Looking for evidence of unfairness, looking for evidence of being conquistadors.
Right.
Um,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Right. The very fact that you can appeal to people.
Or for looking for evidence of being, lay and skilling at Enron or whatever.
Right. Even when a professor of the most secular college at the most secular university stands up and says, we're here to commence the graduation ceremonies at the University of so-and-so, which is located on stolen land. Right.
Yes.
Even that is
Yeah.
ultimately
That is ultimately a Christian, yeah. We have been unfair and unjust to these people. And that is we've treated them unfairly.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, that's the fissure between the left and right. It's a civil war within, I will go so far as to say on both sides, largely badly catechized Christians.
Huh.
I mean, to be perfectly honest, if you wanted to look for who's going, outright pagan,
Mm-hmm.
I think you would have to look on the right.
Say more.
I mean, I think that's where you're going back to the strong gods. I mean, there's that. I forget the book.
Right.
or
I'll see you in
guy, but-
Valhalla.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so the whole I absolutely do not care about anybody outside my national borders. Why would I? They don't add any value to my country, etc. That's a completely in its way workable pagan outlook on no, I don't owe them that. They don't worship my gods, which in this case might be the founding fathers.
Or capitalism.
And or capitalism. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, at the same time as I say, I'm not saying it pejoratively.
Right.
It's it's a more consistent, coherent worldview. I think the left is completely incoherent. The left is completely insane. I mean, it's schizophrenic. It's taking Christian values and rejecting Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a good way to go to the nut house.
Mm-hmm. It's without a center. Yeah.
Do what?
Right. There's no center.
Yeah.
There's no unifying person or principle.
Yeah.
Right. But you're saying on the right, there's the return to even the appeals to hearth and home and family, all swing within the ambit of
that's 3rd century BC Rome.
Of the household gods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was Rome at its best. Pagan Rome at its best.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it worked for a while.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's coherent.
Yeah. So it worked. It could, it satisfies human needs for a while, up to a certain level. But
okay, so interesting. So you think the right or elements of the right, swinging swinging within the gravitational pull of the strong gods, right? Whereas elements of the global elite are swinging into
so there's
the direct gravitational pull.
Now we have the difference between what the elites actually are and what they actually want, and what they're selling wholesale to the people who vote for them.
Right, to the apps that they design versus what they
raise their glasses to toast.
Right. That's a way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, the platform that they run on is schizophrenic post-Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
What they actually want, much money, mo money, cash money, drop. Yeah. Yeah, at the cost of quoting Homestorm Runner. Yeah.
Okay, but I'm just, yeah, I think a lot of them want money. I'm wondering if there's an element of them that even want something more than that, that are actually passionately religious about birthing the next intelligence.
Yeah. I mean, remaking society. I mean, that's now somewhat old hat, but I don't think that's gone. I think that's part of it. I think that's folded in with this new, technological singularity or whatever you want to call it idea. And it will, as a super extra bonus thing, it will also give you, the ring of power that will allow you to, remake society like we've been trying to do since at least Marx, I mean, Rousseau. Um,
Okay, interesting. But the value system that they salute in public is
Yeah.
a sort of fractured Christian ethic.
yeah, yeah. We'll split out the parts that, I mean, the opiate for the masses. Well, that's an interesting question what those are. We have several of them now. But, so I'm talking about what's been carved out of this, schizophrenic post-Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so for example, chastity in any way, shape, or form.
Sure.
Really? No, that's not true. I mean, we do have limits. Like it was we were talking about last night, right? I was born in 1979,
Mm-hmm.
and so for the first 16 years of my life or so, there either was no internet or I didn't have access to it. So I read books. I read things that had been put on dead trees, and they tend to be old. They tend to have some age on them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I really wonder to what degree I have to explain to people it's different than what you're living through. It's different. My consciousness is smeared out across the 20th century in a way that I don't think even yours maybe, and definitely not my niece's. My 12-year-old niece
Mm-hmm.
does not know this world. Will never live in this world that I live in conceptually. Where I'm like, the 50s, not that long ago. 60s, not that long ago. 70s, yesterday, in 1995. Oh, yeah, no, it's now, baby. That was so 2025. February 1st, 2026. What are you talking about? Yeah, but how much has changed, right? And that's how fast things change. Okay, I had a point to that.
We were parsing out.
No, I was talking
era.
about the decay of culture in the 70s and some of the precipices that it looked sexually that it looked like culture was going to just drop right over the edge in the 70s. Normalization of pornography in movie theaters, normalization of sexual relation, like bringing back pagan Greek, catamites. But that was going on like basically above ground. And people, somewhere around 1980, there was a reaction against it, and then that reaction, snowballed into the 90s and gave us, sex offender registries and safe zones and all this sort of stuff. It's like, okay, we decided not to fall off that edge. Okay, I'm grateful for that. However well or badly we did it, at least they're like, okay, no, as a matter of fact, child molestation is not okay.
Wow. So there's a permissiveness in the 70s that actually was. There's a permissiveness in the 70s that existed that did not exist in the 80s.
It started to get, I mean, it was a gradual process. I don't think, I don't know
You
if you can
think-
even say that really reached completion until the late 90s or 2000.
Okay. But at the same time, there was a sort of a continued degradation of degradation of the standard sexual mores around marriage.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it became less and less thinkable. I mean, in my lifetime, you could really actually still in the 80s, and God bless her, criticize people for, shacking up and having kids outside of marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like, I mean, it's obviously still more in the, shall we say, lower classes. But, it's become so far more normalized among people, even with, graduate degrees or something.
Right.
And making
Right.
serious money.
Yeah.
And they're still, living I mean, there was this whole scandal about Murphy Brown that seems so quaint now. So it's the H.W. Bush administration. A man named Dan Quayle was vice president.
Yep.
Who was, made a laughing stock because you can ridicule anything and anyone. So there's an episode of this, so there's this journalist, in probably New York, and she's, on a TV show or something. So she's, famous and, and she has like a child out of wedlock.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, Dan Quayle, comments like, this is a sign of our culture degrading. And of course, he was completely excoriated and mocked for that. But that's, but you could still do that in 1990. That still made sense to a lot of people. And now it's like, boy, that's so politically incorrect. It's unthinkable. Right? Like, how dare you criticize single mothers or anything like that? Like,
Right.
Okay. Yeah. So that whole situation has, continued to degrade.
Mm-hmm.
It's gotten to the point where the divorce rate has stabilized and maybe even pulled back a little bit from where it used to be because people are just not getting married.
Right. So the people who are getting married are people who have some very strong convictions around marriage.
Well, I mean, some of the, statistically speaking, the worst people, the people who are most likely to get divorced or not. I mean, what's the divorce rate? It's still, is it 40%? It used to be 50.
Oh, I've heard as high as 56%.
Really? Okay.
I've heard that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my understanding, and this is, several years out of date at this point. Again, I live in this different sort of like, I tend to, stuff in 2013 is still, no, it's not. Stuff is changing too fast. But I had heard it, for a long time, into my 20s at least, probably until I was 30. I had always just heard, this monolithic, the divorce rate's 50%, and that's awful, and it is awful.
Yeah, who's that divorce attorney out of New York? I think his name is James Sexton. Does that sound right, Tom? I think that he's sort of done the podcast rounds. I think he's pretty enjoyable to listen to.
Sure.
I don't think he gets everything right, but so I've listened to several of his talks, and he seems to say 56% fairly consistently.
Okay. Well, he learned that statistic at some point, and who knows what it is this year. But.
Sure. But I mean, his whole point is, if you were to get on a ride at an amusement park, that there was a 56% chance that it was going to crash and burn with you in it, you would never get on that ride.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So his basic point is like, why are you getting married? Why?
Right.
Can you answer that question? Can you answer that question seriously? And actually, on that level, I sort of agree with his message, is that if you understand what marriage is, you wouldn't undertake it lightly.
Well, yeah, you wouldn't undertake it lightly.
I think
and whether that guy has any idea what actually makes marriages last.
Yeah.
Which, the whole question is it the ride or is it the amusement park as a whole?
Right.
This ride safe and that ride an 80%?
Yeah.
That's one way to get to 56%.
Sure.
So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he's got some interesting things to say. I don't know that he draws all the right conclusions, but I think he's got some genuine insights.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and he presents them well. And his big thing is everyone should have a prenup, right?
Because he's in New York, yes.
Well, he's a New York attorney, but I mean, his basic point is, well, you should have basically a roadmap what he calls it, you should have a roadmap for your marriage, right? Rather
Okay.
than letting anybody else decide what your marriage or the eventual end of your marriage will look like. You guys decide what your marriage and what the possible ending
Hmm.
would look like.
As opposed to leaving it in the hands of your state's divorce laws.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a certain worldly wisdom to what he's
Well, yeah,
going
exactly.
for.
You know, talking about paganism again. Yes, that is a that's actually a great pagan strategy.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. Interesting. Wow. Ever since I read The Great Divorce, though, I've always been, my ears have perked up whenever I hear about the technological elite trying to pull off some particularly special social program that's near and dear to their collective heart, rather than merely pursuing money,
right.
merely selling another app, merely engaging the casinos to help them design the app so that they understand the precise strings
This is
of the human
exactly how
psychology
you
on which to
addict
pull.
people to, yeah.
Right, right. People want a little reward, a little in-game reward, about every 7 attempts.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely no less, no more than 5.
Uh-huh.
No less than 5, no more than 9. But 7 seems to be about the right number to keep people engaged for the maximum amount of time. Right. Yeah. Get them to the next paywall.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, I think Doyle puts in the mouth of Holmes at some point, that people individually are unpredictable, but in mass they are very predictable.
Yeah. Yeah, there's probably a certain truth to the idea of regression to the mean across the whole population. Yeah. Huh. Oh, how did we get here?
Well, I mean, it's 2026.
It's 2026. Yeah. Of all
We're watching a lot of people's hopes and dreams, crumble, daily.
right, like nuclear scientists in Iran, like, oh man, I studied so hard for this, and then some guys fly over here in the middle of the night and they blow up all my work.
Right?
I stayed up late studying.
That's right. Yeah.
Put me back in, coach. We can rebuild. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. What of the world events that have dominated the headlines in the last year? Which ones have really caught your attention?
Oh gosh, I mean this whole let's ring in the new year by I don't even remember what sequence these happened in, but let's send the special ops to go, capture a foreign head of state and put him in a courtroom. Okay. Okay. Not sure how that works with international law.
Don't forget his wife.
And his wife. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it'd be, and to be fair, it would be one thing if the special ops had just, dropped onto his building and taken his wife, nominally a private citizen,
Right.
for, breaking U.S. law and 6 ways till Sunday. That would be a very different, the complexion of that situation would be very, very different. No. I'm still at that point, I'd be like, wow, how you guys need to show me your homework. How did that check out?
You guys need to show me your homework to
the people making this case to Trump, assuming Trump okayed something, I guess, as opposed to the deep state just doing what the deep state wants to do.
Oh, there were so many. There was so many ships off the coast of Venezuela. There was such a naval presence there.
Yeah,
it's hard for me to imagine that. It's hard for me to imagine that he had no idea that.
Well, I don't think it was no idea. But did he actually pull the trigger? Did he actually pull the trigger?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, but so there's that, and then there's this.
We got him. Who? Him?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Putin.
He's
Zelensky.
He's gonna show up in a courtroom in New York on Monday. Yeah.
Right.
Okay then.
I remember watching it. Do you remember the second Batman Begins movie? And sorry, the second Batman movie, but the second Christopher Nolan, Christian Bale one, where he goes to China, and he pulls the
No.
accountant out of China.
Oh yeah.
Remember that? He like flies into the guy's building, grabs this guy, and then gets. Did you?
No, I don't remember this plot. Anything.
Oh really?
Which enemy? Which supervillain is in this one?
It's not a supervillain. It's the Hong Kong accountant.
Batman goes to Hong Kong.
Batman goes to Hong Kong.
And basically, apparently, okay, Lex Luthor. Call him Lex Luthor. He has no superpowers. He's just a crooked Chinese accountant.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, I have zero recollection of this even happened. No recollection of this at all.
So that's how the government wants it. I mean, I remember watching that and thinking, well, that's a little far fetched,
Fair enough.
And then here in 2026,
yeah, that's what we said.
Yeah, the U.S. government goes and does a snatch and grab
Right.
out of.
Well, I mean, or the whole Greenland thing. Like, I don't even. What are we doing?
I don't know. That seemed like such. Seems like a stunt to me, but whose stunt? Why are they doing it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's out of the news cycle now because of the ice, because of Alex Preddy. So it's out of the news cycle.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Like one NATO power is going to go and actually get into a firefight with other NATO powers in Greenland.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
I don't know. That.
Well, apparently Trump's pretty much gotten it.
Okay. What does that mean?
So what he did is he asked. So Denmark thought they had the ability to sell it to the
Mm-hmm.
EU. So Trump offered them 700 billion
Mhm.
and pay each Greenland citizen 150,000 to buy Greenland. Denmark said no. Then Trump went to the UN leader and said, I'd still like to buy Greenland. He said, I don't think so. Trump's like, okay, what if I just put a 10% tariff on all the UN countries? Like, oh, well, you pay a lot of our bills. So what if we give you jurisdiction of Greenland and all of the Arctic, you just don't buy it? Trump's like, sounds great.
Jurisdiction, as in license to maintain military bases there
Trade routes,
and trade routes. Okay, trade routes are
Well, mineral extraction.
mineral extraction.
okay. So it's not going to become a state.
Right.
Greenlandians aren't going to become American citizens. It's just going to become a sort of proxy territory
Pretty much. So the
administered by.
U.S. instead of Denmark. So this is essentially Denmark owns Greenland,
Yeah.
but Greenland is not Denmark.
Right.
So Denmark
It's
owns
a protectorate
Greenland.
of some kind.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Greenland has been rented out to the United States. We signed a lease.
Essentially, yeah.
We signed a lease for it.
Right.
How is this not in the news? This is the problem with the news.
Yeah. That's
Well,
right.
Yeah, we're running around, and I'm not saying it doesn't deserve attention, but we're running around. Everyone's trying to figure out if Alex Preddy reached for his firearm or not.
Right.
Apparently there have been major expansions in effective U.S. territory.
I mean, yeah, this is
on the
I
top of the globe.
I'd need to look at things, but like, is this bigger than the Alaska purchase, at least in terms of land area?
Way bigger.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
There's Alaska,
okay.
Greenland, and the Arctic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you count the Arctic Ocean, yeah, I'm just the island of Greenland.
Island Greenland, I think, is twice as big as Alaska.
Okay. Okay.
Get a globe. The maps won't. The maps won't help.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, they're both distorted by the same amount on a Mercator projection because they're about the same latitude.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
But
The
anyway.
distortion is grotesque but proportional.
That's right. Yeah. As long as it's about the same amount of gross distortion, we're fine.
Right. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Okay. All right.
Okay.
So we
So, yeah.
are leasing Greenland now, apparently. But it's not. This is not part of the public conversation, which the
No,
public
yeah.
conversation has been corrupted.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so
I
yeah,
find it
I mean,
pressing.
I mean, if I'm perfectly honest, I consider the whole ice thing like, we've been bitching about ice 90s at least.
Not at this volume.
Not at this volume, but I mean, who cares about volume? The issues are the same.
But this goes back to what you said earlier, is that ICE essentially, whether it's doing it well or not, essentially ICE is executing a federal mandate,
Yes.
which again, going back to where we started with the conversation, which is a direct result of Congress's failure to address this issue practically.
Yeah. So ICE has been a red herring since at least the 90s for this reason. Like this ICE becomes the flashpoint for, well, we don't want immigration law to be this way. Well, I mean, how dare you actually enforce the law that's on the books? I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, it's nullification. I mean, how did we get to the point where states can nullify immigration law? What? And that's just like it's supposed to be like no, the whole process is you want the law to be different, you elect people, you send them to Congress, they debate it, and they pass a different law. Whoa, but they'll never, because they're too corrupt and they won't do what you want them to do. Well, what's the answer to that? It's not bitching about the executive agency that's carrying out the law that's on the books. That's not the answer. That's never been the answer. That will never be the answer. Unless and until you get to a unitary system where you just elect a dude and he has agencies that issue decrees and the decrees are carried out. That's not the system that we have.
Right, but if it's the system that we're sliding towards, then
there are a lot of ways in which, we've slid a long way toward that system.
But the public conversation is not about, are we slipping into a national order, which we never intended?
Right,
We're sort of getting caught up in the fervor of the moment, right? Is Trump actually authorized to send jets to Iran? Is ICE actually authorized to use the level of force that it's been seen using in various U.S. cities?
Yeah.
Is Renee Good actually stepping on the gas or on the brake when she gets shot twice in the head or twice in the chest or whatever the case may be? Right? Like that has something to do with our human addiction to stories. Not addiction. That's too harsh. Our human enamoration with stories, right?
Yeah.
We have to tell stories to ourselves.
Yeah.
Right? Renee Good is a story in the way that the state of congressional autonomy in the United States is not a story.
Right. Yeah.
No, I mean, maybe if you're just a history wonk and find that sort of thing interesting.
Right. Well, I mean, if you're a person who, looks at situations and cares about why they're the way that they are in the first place, as opposed to getting fixated on the minutia.
Yeah, it's interesting because with the ICE thing, both of those people were definitely in the wrong. Like, it's sad they got killed, but if you know anything about respecting a law enforcement officer, you comply with him until he tells you to do the next thing. Otherwise,
I mean,
you are obstructing.
Yeah. And if they send you to jail, you go to jail, and then you hire a lawyer and sue him for doing his job badly.
Exactly,
okay.
Yeah.
As opposed to having it out there in the street. Yeah.
It's like, like anyone knows, like if a police officer pulls you over, you don't try to run away.
Yeah, that's.
Or try to run him over.
Yeah.
It's like
running away is better than running him over.
Yeah, much better. Yeah, it's just like it's like what they teach in DMV schools. Like, if an officer approaches you, you just obey what he says.
Yeah.
Now he might be a bad cop, and that's really sad and unfortunate, and he might give you a ticket for something that wasn't actually a problem.
Right.
And that's awful, but.
And you can stop and think about it and take actions after that, because at least in theory, we still live in a country where there are laws.
Right.
And they can be, and we can have a rational debate on whether they're being applied well or not.
Yeah, like with Alex, is like, if you're fighting 6 officers, you should just stop.
Right.
And let them handcuff you.
Yeah.
and comply
Yeah.
until they say, okay, you're going to go to jail for a day,
Yeah.
and they're going to let you out. Don't do this again.
Right.
You know?
And if you disagree with that, then again, the system that we have is you hire a lawyer and you take it to court and, you
Yeah.
make a decision about it. As
So-
opposed to, yeah,
So like maybe he didn't have the gun on him, but he was reaching for something again.
yeah,
So maybe they were like, he has a second gun. Maybe that was their thought. It's like, okay, we got one, and they weren't gonna play around because if I don't know if you saw the full video, but the ice truck is coming next to him and it's just slowing down, and the guy he starts like beating stuff, breaks the headlight, is screaming at the guys. They stop. He gets out and says, "Calm down."
Mhm.
He's yelling at him, spitting at him, calling him a bunch of names.
Yeah.
Officer pulls out his pepper spray, says, "Please stand down."
Mhm.
That doesn't do it. Then the five guys get around him, take him to the floor, and then one guy grabs a gun,
Mhm.
and then he looks like he pulls something again, and the guy's like, "Gun!" And then the one guy shoots him.
Yeah.
So like he was in the wrong the whole time.
Yeah.
He should have just stopped, not even approached the vehicle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Peaceful protest is just holding a sign.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, that was,
like, it's sad he got shot, but it's like that was all his fault. Like,
yeah. Yeah.
You know,
If you're, Martin Luther King in a, diner in, John Q Town in the South, it's like, okay, I walked into this segregated diner and I don't believe that's right. And the guy is going to come in and arrest me and throw me in jail. So there's the public spectacle of, hey, I just sat down and ordered some coffee. And any human being should be able to do that. And here I am rotting in jail. Well, I mean, that's broadly speaking Gandhi's approach, right? As opposed to, public figures in Minnesota saying, hey, you should surround ICE and, obstruct them and keep them from doing their job. And like, that's not, no.
good idea. Well, then, did you see the other officer that actually got run over by a car?
No.
So there was another situation where there were two officers and a lady got in her car, and they said, "Please stop."
Mhm.
And then multiple times she didn't. And they were like 40 feet away. Both had their pistols drawn, weren't shooting. And then she started driving, and one gets out of the way, and then she makes a sharp turn and hits the guy. He actually launches in the air. He just lays there. And then the other guy was able to get to the car and stop the lady. But it's like that. And then there's another ICE officer who got his finger bitten off by a protester. It was like, these
Yeah.
people are pretty vicious.
Yeah.
And then the ICE officers are surprisingly well-tempered for all of the people they're dealing with.
They're dealing with some provocation, yeah.
And not to mention, and then you read the files of who they're actually arresting. It's like, well, rapists, murderers, cartel members, all these horrible people.
People who've done horrible things.
Yeah. And these are the ones they're going after first. It's like these protesters, the people you're trying to support, are like the worst people in society.
Yeah. And again, we could have an intelligent debate on, okay, do you have an objection to sending them back to Mexico or Guatemala or Venezuela or whatever? Well, then say it out loud. What is your actual objection? Let's debate it.
Right.
But
That will just scream and yell at
yeah,
guys doing their job.
yeah, and saying, well, these are just the the people in our neighborhood, like it's Sesame Street or something, and I think it's just people talking past each other.
A lot of it's organized. I don't know if you've seen that, but like they'll have trucks pull up with a bunch of signs and hand them out to people. And then they're like, so and so time of day. They'll be like, all right, that's enough. We'll go to the next spot.
Yeah.
So it's very fomented for sure. But
Well, it strikes me as you're describing all this that it's like it's another case of like how schizophrenic the left is.
yes,
I mean, it's like, so okay, where does it make sense to nonviolently protest? It makes sense to nonviolently protest in a place that has a rule of law, but that has unjust laws. But there's still this overarching sense of there's a rule of law. It could work in British India because the British, even though they had done some pretty, oppressive, squirrely things to India,
Mm-hmm.
they're still Brits and they still have a rule of law. They did that. So it would make sense for someone to actually nonviolently protest, again, get themselves thrown in jail or penalized in some way,
Mm-hmm.
make it a public spectacle, and engender in a society that's liable to have this kind of debate and have it mean anything, a debate on, oh, are we treating these people well or not? Should we change our policies? Should we change our laws? And likewise in America in the 60s. It had a rule of law, it had bad laws, and people, decided that this tactic could also work in that situation, and to a large extent it appears to have done so. This is not what people are doing in Minneapolis. Like this is a weird, as I say, schizophrenic, like, where do you not nonviolently protest? You don't nonviolently protest Stalin. That's useless. That's pointless. Right? That's a situation where some other tactic is called for. And so, but the insanity is like, people know that they live in a country where there's a rule of law in this country at this point still, for now, not to be taken for granted.
As in, they know that the majority of ICE agents aren't going to just start pistol whipping and shooting them.
That's right. Yeah.
Just for standing there.
That's right. Yeah.
They actually know.
Out of 10,000 ICE agents, the odds are not that a single one of them is going to open up with an automatic weapon and just start laying people out.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably not going to happen. But their rhetoric is also, these people are outside the law and they're completely unjust. And so, we're going to not declare war on them, but we're going to semi-violently protest them and obstruct them from what they're doing, which if this was the Soviet Union in 1952, Stalin would just have the NKVD shoot them. Problem solved. So it doesn't make sense. It's like their rhetoric about these people is completely divorced from the reality, and they're taking actions that are they're mostly consistent with the reality, but they're partly consistent with the rhetoric, and they're just schizophrenic.
Frightening. Yeah. The lack of coordination between state and federal authorities is alarming.
Well, that's nullification. That's straight up hardcore. This is South Carolina nullifying the tariff.
Uh-huh.
And we're apparently supposed to be okay with that.
Yeah, how many battles are you going to pick?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because that's the other side of it, is that we have, not only do we have jury nullification, we have judge nullification. Yeah. We have so many, judges who are so embedded in this worldview that they will simply no, I'm just going to, do what I think is right. And, I will sashay around and, put together some basically gibberish that somewhere refers to a law, probably somewhere.
But essentially, they don't see the law as binding.
Right. Yeah.
They feel that, I answer to some other authority,
That's
not
right.
the law.
Yeah.
And it's convenient that I happen to be in this position of power so that I can get in, so that I can prevent the law from being applied because I disagree with the law. So it's a good thing I'm here.
That's right.
Lest the law be applied in a given situation.
Which is, so unintelligent and, And of course we can't actually have laws rewritten. That's not how this country works anymore. Federal law doesn't change in useful ways.
Well, and in a certain way, they're right in the sense that, if everyone actually agrees, okay, the Congress has castrated itself over the last 50,
60 years, right? If you actually start from there and you say, okay, well, if you're going to get anything done, we can't rely on legislative action. So in a certain way, you actually have to say, well, they kind of am starting at the same starting point that I am, right? But the conclusion that they draw, which is to just assume whatever power you can and then exercise that power as you see fit, which is why books like, what is it, the 48 Laws of Power and others of its ilk, you actually have to start to think, is this a fruit of a certain worldview, or is it actually helping creating the worldview? I think the answer is probably both, right? But there are people who...
It's an incremental bootstrapping process.
Right, an increment. But there are people who believe that that power is the highest authority. Just the ability to do something that power does not serve. Power does not serve a superstructure of right and wrong.
Yeah, I mean, you could go so far as to do something like, so imagine a military officer that's commanded by the Secretary of Defense or the President directly to do this thing, and he looks, he looks himself in the mirror, and he looks at the statute book. It's like, Congress passed a law in this year that says this may not happen, and the President is ordering me to do this, or the Constitution says Congress has the power of declaring war, and this is obviously a declaration of war that the president is doing unilaterally. You have the option of resigning and not doing the thing that you know to be unjust. So if you're a judge and you're being called upon to apply a law that you believe to be unjust, you have that option. You can do that. You can make a public statement about it. Probably should. And then, and provoke a public debate about, should we change that law? Or, if it becomes enough of an endemic process, we could have a convention. We could, if we look at things and say, all right, the system that, the Constitution that we have it written is not working, we need to come up with a new system. And, there are 2 amendment processes. One of them we've never tried, which is to have another nationwide convention and talk about it.
Another nationwide constitutional convention, you mean?
I mean, it could turn into that, right? There's, of course, people are scared of that probably because they think the same thing will happen to our Constitution that happened to the Articles of Confederation. It might happen, it might not. I mean, what would people agree on? I mean, that's of course, that's the other side of it. Another person like, well, we can't agree on anything right now, so why would we even bother doing that? Okay, I mean, in a sense, that's a fair point. But what we're doing right now is not working. What we're doing right now in terms of the public debate at this point is what I'm talking about. What we're doing in terms of how, as members of the body politic, we're even communicating with each other or even, attempting to address the issues is just completely not working. And at least, having a public debate about it would be at least the possibility of a starting point or the early stages of something to change it.
Yeah, well, to have a public debate, you have to have people who are trained in rhetoric, right? You have to have people who are trained in actually trying to make a reasoned argument.
Yeah.
Right, rather than merely speaking the particular platitudes that will rally their particular constituency.
That's right.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I mean, so you ask about what will cause things to change. A crisis of some kind. It's going to we're going to continue to run this broken playbook until something forces us to change from the outside. Or
the outside. What
do
you have in mind?
I mean, China could embarrass us. Hopefully it doesn't involve nuclear weapons. Russia could. I mean, apparently, public figures in Russia are talking about, this hypersonic missile that we shot at Kiev, we're going to strap an actual nuke to one and send it to Berlin. And maybe London.
Actual?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, okay, then what do we do? Okay. Yeah, it's your move, United States. What do you want to do about it? But yeah, there are a lot of, I mean, there are already a lot of things that China could do to us, that we have, it's be terrifyingly interesting to find out what our counter move would be and whether it would work at all. Yeah. So, that's the stereotypical form of external, shock. It's like, okay, again, we're a country of 300 million people in a world with more than one country with a billion people. We've outsourced all of our manufacturing to other countries, and about, I don't know, half of it at least to one of those two countries with a billion people. And there's another country in the world that does have as many nukes as we do. Okay, and we sashay around as if we're, the only player in town. That's not going to last.
You think our posturing on the political stage is a little tone deaf?
Yeah, yeah. I think we're pretending like it's 1999 and it's not 1999 anymore.
And you think that this regardless of which administration has been in power since 1999, you think the tune has always been the same? Like we haven't, in fact, woken up to the fact that history started again?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That history started again. Exactly.
Interesting.
Oh my gosh, that was so myopic. Yeah.
What, the end of history?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was, yeah. Right. The global power. Right.
Yeah.
The mega power. What did he call it?
I don't know. I haven't read the book. The phrase, however, was of course the book came out when I was, probably 21 or something. Something along those lines. So, yeah, that was probably the low ebb of my interest in politics, actually.
Interesting. 21. You were most involved with
the year 2000. What was there to debate? Like, how many hanging chads were there in Florida? That's what there was to debate.
That's a good point. Yeah. The hanging chads.
Yeah.
The dividended chads. The half moon chads. Yeah. Right.
See, you read more about it than I have.
Right. That's so interesting because that was the first political event that I actually got interested in.
Okay.
Oh, wow, this is interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. It all boils down to Florida, and it all boils down to one county. Like, wow.
Yeah.
This really is a photo finish here for Bush and Gore.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember actually clipping out newspaper articles about the electoral finish in Florida.
Yeah. Newspaper articles, yes.
Newspaper articles, right?
And there were still dead tree newspapers, yes.
There were still dead tree newspapers. Yeah, I'd
read about
them, cut them out,
tape
them into books. Right. So I'd have like these like time capsules of history in the making. Right. Yeah. Oh yeah.
So you've got
big
more of that sense of
Gore and Bush.
the longitude of history.
Yeah. I mean, that was probably one of the first times I rolled my eyes at what an adult had written because there was there was some totally pointless collection of prose that some guy had written. He had gone for a jog with both Bush and Gore, right? And he described the different jogging technique, stamina, endurance, and sort of conversational style employed by Bush and Gore.
Oh my gosh.
Right. And so it was just like, oh yeah, I ran with Bush and we went for a jog, and I ran with Gore and we went for a jog. And I remember his last line. And I remember even as a kid thinking, well, this is total bullshit. He said, so it's unclear. It's unclear what the election in November will hold for the future of the United States. But one thing is clear, that if this race was decided by a jogging contest between the two candidates, it would be impossible
Right.
impossible to know for sure right now.
Right. Wow. Yeah.
And I,
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't know, how old was I? This was 1990. Yeah, this was the 99 election cycle, right? No, the 2000 election cycle. Thank you. So yeah, so I was 11 or 12 years old, and I remember thinking,
Yeah. Is this what politics is about?
because this is what writing is about. This is what journalism is about.
Yeah, there's that.
Someone wasted. Why
Yeah,
did
they
someone
were
waste
sort
my
of-
time with this?
Yeah. Well,
Right?
yeah,
I was
they're
expecting some insight into the candidates.
digging
Instead,
their own
it was
grave.
basically, like, you know, it was a typical Life magazine,
Yeah.
or it might have been Reader's Digest. Yeah, it was something that actually can't
I
afford
mean,
to
that
actually
was-
take a side.
Yeah. That was kind of peak uniparty, honestly.
Mm.
You know, what's the difference? What's the difference? I mean,
Peak uniparty, right?
Yeah.
Right. It's the
Right.
Super Bowl,
yeah.
right? Both sides, no matter who wins, both sides are going to let us sell nachos to the
Right.
crowd.
That's right.
Important thing is to have.
will roll. Doesn't matter whether the Patriots win or the Rams win.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It'll change who gets to make the speeches, who gets. It'll affect the draft.
Yeah.
It affects the draft,
right.
right? And so then we can have another 3 to 6 months of debate over, like, oh, how should you use your draft?
Your 31st
picks.
pick as opposed to your 32nd.
Exactly. Yeah. It'll affect.
Tools should you engineer?
Mhm. Yeah. Right. So there was stuff to talk about. Yeah, but it was, yeah. It's so funny because that football analogy used by, yeah, and frankly, I mean, it is used by people who came up in that time period, right? In the 90s, where, yeah, it was uniparty.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas I would say the majority of millennials were not raised to think along uniparty lines.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's a very Gen X, skeptical,
Mm.
you know,
Right.
you know,
Right.
They're all
Different
whatever.
names. Yeah. Different names, same approach. Yeah.
Which, not to brag on my own generation, but that, to that degree, we kind of.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas now, yeah, we don't think it's the Super Bowl. We think it's a knife fight. Right. Whether or not it is.
It's a
whether
Super
or not
Bowl
it is.
with knives. Yeah.
The Super Bowl. Right. It's gladiatorial combat.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can still sell T-shirts
Yeah.
in the stands, by golly.
That's right. That's right.
But if we don't see some blood,
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
what's the point of the merch gun if we're not stepping over puddles of blood while we're popping off the merch, It's a knife fight.
That's
Another Tim Dillon quote. Yeah, shout out to Tim. So,
Red and sword.
yikes. Okay, so we had some really interesting conversations with Father James, of course, but also Pavlos. Came on. We're both talking about the events in Caracas, and it was interesting how the way this was framed was. Is it an act of war? Is it an action of the U.S. Department of Justice assisted by the U.S. military? Like the framing of how we should consider an act like this. Father James said, an act of war. Everyone's saying, no, it's. Father James said, people are trying to deny that it's an act of war. Of course it's an act of war.
Right?
He said, Congress should only get involved in declaring states of war, but acts of war. Presidents do this all the time.
All right.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah.
I need to root through the Federalist Papers to see if I can find anything that backs that interpretation up. But yeah.
Oh, I actually looked into this.
Oh,
Okay.
There is no constitutional or statement saying that the U.S. has to declare war.
has to declare war
Doesn't have
in
to.
order to.
Right. I mean, yeah. Article 1 says that Congress has the power to declare war.
So
Yeah.
it's actually just a courtesy, technically speaking, for the U.S. to
That's
declare war.
one way to interpret it. Yeah.
So it's not like there's any law binding us saying we have to tell someone we're going to war.
That's kind of like the Second Amendment, where I'm like, you know what? One of the things I think we could bring up at a convention would be let's get some clarification on the wording here. What do we mean here? Because I frankly think it would be a damn good idea. Be like, no, by the time we actually deploy our military against another country, we should actually have forced Congress to go on the record whether they're okay with that. That's, my wishy-washy pacifist take on it. Yeah.
Like there should be the sort of the national unity of if we're going to invest and commit these resources, the representative body of the people should have said,
Hill people.
yes.
I mean, even this little, like nice, tidy action where we, made off with a head of state so as to put him on trial in our own country. I mean, we only killed several dozen people.
And then on the flip side, though, we warned him, I think 7 times to cut it out because he was sending multiple
I mean,
ships of.
so like, and in the debate on the floor of the goddamn Congress, the representative of the, is taking the side of the administration can and should read all of this out. This is why we should declare war on the state of Venezuela and, take these military actions until we've got him in our clutches. Great. And if you need to do it in closed session so that it's not public knowledge, also great.
Yeah, I think with that, technically speaking, is that actually the right department of war?
Do what?
My question is, I think what Father was getting at was that, like skirmishes, when you go in and you take something out because you need to do it quickly and effectively.
Right. Well, yeah.
Really bring
okay. Skirmishes as opposed to that's doing something quickly and effectively. That could be at any scale.
Right. I think what he was saying with state of war is when it's like full engine mode of, yep, it's the Navy and the Air Force and the Marines and the Army going.
So that's, and that's,
and
again,
it
is very true that the text of the Constitution as it's written leaves that very ambiguous.
Right.
You could put that color on it.
Yeah. I think what he was trying to say was like when you do something like getting Maduro, you can't bring Congress into it, otherwise they're going to mess it all up. Meaning they're going to be like, well, that's not right. We can't do that. That's not going to help. When Trump was like, well, he's messing up a lot of U.S. citizens. He's hurting his own people.
Well, okay.
And all these things.
That objection about, well, Congress will always do blah, blah, blah. That's the Congress that we have at present.
True.
That is not the Congress prior to 1950.
Yeah.
That Congress could, in fact, Pearl Harbor was too obvious, right? Well, okay. So Pearl Harbor was too obvious. Yes. We have been at war with the Empire of Japan ever since they performed this, whatever the exact phrasing of that was. But within a few days, we were like, you know what? As a matter of policy, we actually, in fact, need to go to war with Germany. We came to that decision, ran it through Congress. They voted on it. They had a debate, and they decided they made a decision. They could do that then. As venal in some ways as that society could be already, they could actually do that. They were not so paralyzed by, all the things that in this case, the partisan rhetoric that, we literally cannot give any points to the other side and we must filibuster everything.
I think with that one is a little different because we were declaring war against the state of Germany. With Maduro, we weren't actually declaring war against the state of Venezuela. We were just saying it against Maduro.
Okay, I have no patience with that. We made off with their goddamn head of state.
Which was elected wrongly, that the whole country...
I'm sure, yes.
Didn't want him there. He was killing his own citizens.
Yes.
And he became an enemy of the U.S., so instead of declaring the war on the whole Venezuela state, if you just take out the main guy that's causing all the trouble, that might be the best solution.
That still was an act of war against the state of Venezuela as it was then constituted.
Yeah.
Like what you're saying, whether or not he had a legitimate election, he was the effective head of state.
Yeah, he was the one who had the actual power.
Whether or not that power was legitimately gained,
Yeah.
you're still removing the head of state.
Yeah.
And you think, and you're saying that,
I would, and again,
okay,
this
go
is
ahead.
I'm proposing this would be a good rule of policy for how the United States should conduct itself in the future.
Mm-hmm.
That's absolutely the level in which I'm talking.
Sure.
It's very idealistic, yes. But yes, by the time we take any such action, Congress should be, that clause in the Constitution as it's written, if I were president,
Sure.
that is how I would choose to construe that clause in the Constitution. I am not going to take military action. I am not going to take active military. Now, if I've got
aggressive military action, defensive military action,
if
you're
I've got
okay with it.
the border with Mexico and a cartel or the Mexican state sends troops against them, they're going to defend themselves and they're going to call me on, the hotline. And I'll be, here talking to my Secretary of Defense, like, oh, what do we do? They need to do this, this, and this. Send them in, pincer movement, whatever. And by the way, are you writing this down? Because we're going to go take this to Congress at the next convenient interval. But for right now, yeah, obviously, yes.
So, what do you think we should do with Iran? Do you think Congress should declare war against the state of Iran?
Okay, so there's now two separate issues, right? There's the first of all, do I think it's a good idea to take an action in Iran right now? And second of all, if I did consider it a good idea, how would I go about it? So I think we're asking the second question.
Yeah.
So I would definitely say, all right, close doors, shutter the windows, get rid of all that damn bugging equipment. Okay. What do we do about this? I believe this is urgent. I believe this needs to be done for these reasons. And you have 12 hours to debate it. Up or down. There will be a vote in 12 hours. You will vote. We will, I will take action if you vote yes. I will, against my better judgment, cease and desist if you vote no. That is how I would handle it.
And then, for public statement, how would you phrase it? Would you say we're at war with Iran, or we're at war with the Muslim?
Yeah, I mean, I could certainly choose to phrase it. We are at war with the Ayatollah and regime in charge of Iran. Yeah, you could potentially argue it that way. Yeah.
Because technically speaking, the people of Iran don't want to go to war with us. But
Not to my knowledge, yeah.
They're asking us to take out their leader because they can't right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so then, there's a whole bunch of these things that really kind of need to be pinned down. What does it mean to make a declaration of war? Can you only declare war against an entire nation and all of its people? Or are you declaring war against its government?
Yeah, my instinct says you have to declare war against their government, right? So let's say that the coup against Hitler was that 44, spring of 44? Operation Valkyrie, right? That failed.
Yeah.
Right, but the plan was to replace Hitler's regime with, again, it would have been mostly German military figures.
Right.
And the plan was, well, we're going to start negotiating with the Allies. I think if the plan had succeeded, the Allies could have negotiated them in a different way than they would have ever negotiated with the Nazi regime. But I think it's true to say that you should always. I want to be careful of absolute statements here.
Yeah.
I think you should but my instinct is to say you should always be declaring war against the government of a nation, because you would never walk into a village of innocents and just start killing them. Well, I was like, oh, we're at war with them. But if you're fighting their soldiers, well, you're fighting them in the capacity of their agency on behalf of the ruling government. So I think you can say, no, we declare war against governments.
The next question is, do you need to tell them you're at war with them before you attack them?
Well, we certainly took it the wrong way when Japan attacked us without telling us we were at war.
We took that poorly.
I mean, and inevitably the government of Iran will take it poorly. That's sort of, in a way, it's beside the point, right?
I think there's a very healthy feudal, in the Middle Ages, you would have to, like Joan of Arc, for example, actually published her intention to attack British-held towns and drive the British troops from those towns. Like she was very, I don't want to say diplomatic, but she was very deliberate in basically giving them notice that these were her intentions, and actually saying, well, if you leave, we're not going to just kill you, kill you as you march to the sea.
Yeah.
Right. We have military goals that we intend to accomplish.
Military and political, which is to say we want to run our own country.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think there's a deeply healthy approach in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'd be pretty loath to say, oh yeah, sneak attacks against, I'll say, governments at large are a good idea.
Right. I mean, you could come up with a different scenario, right? So this foreign country has occupied this archipelago.
Mm-hmm.
We believe unjustly. I mean, so like the Falklands or something, right?
Right.
Were the British obliged to give the Argentines notice if they were going to take the bloody Falklands back? I mean, I don't see a compulsion in that scenario. Like, you already know you're militarily occupying part of another country. You get what's coming to you.
As in, if
that country may, at any time, take what they believe to be their own possessions back.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I believe that. I think that's true. Can I square the two things I've just what I've claimed and what I've just agreed to? Yeah. As soon as the other nation is the aggressor, I think that seems to remove certain obligations. But if you intend to set about changing the status quo,
I mean, yeah, if you're going to go in and regime change, that's a different apple.
Sure. But this does lead me back to Maduro, because I do, Paul, it seems to me that you're saying that a attack against a head of state is an attack against the government, and therefore, therefore initiating an act
I will
of war.
nail my colors to that mast.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Making off with the head of state is an act of war against the government of that state, the existing government of that state in this case.
Right. And your objection perhaps would be to some of the points Tom made is the United States may have at various times said, stop doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
But they never quite came out and said, we're going to come and get you.
Right.
So it was a sneak attack.
Do this within 72 hours or we won't be responsible for the consequences. Or, I mean, that's not necessarily the most felicitous phrasing, but yeah. That's, and again, before I would issue an ultimatum like that, I would have the same closed door session. This is not something that, I mean, again, what was the spirit the Constitution was written under? It was, to a large extent, there's a parliament to keep the king from doing whatever the bleep he wants to, in particular, blundering into foreign wars for his own glory and conquest and, grabbing stuff. Go back to the conquistadors. Yeah.
Right. He's after that good Venezuelan salsa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the argument. Go ahead.
Well, no, I was just thinking about that because talking about the salsa, one of the natives of Venezuela was asked by a reporter, like, what do you think of Trump getting Maduro? I was like, well, he was very happy. The citizen was very happy. He said, I mean, Russia and China were knocking at our door trying to work with us. And do you think they wanted our salsa recipes?
They wanted our what?
Salsa recipes.
Right. Yeah.
So he was like, no, like, we had a lot of bad players trying to get into our door too.
Yeah.
It's nice that we don't have to worry about them anymore.
Well,
as much.
won't have to worry about them as much. Yeah, the actual history will be messier where it goes from here.
Right.
You know, I pray for them. I hope for the best.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. I don't know. Kind of split on this one because I'm like, yes, Congress should be able to have the vote. Same time, I feel like the president, as the commander in chief, should be able to decide when he's going to attack somebody at his own will.
But that's the very thing you're objecting to,
Yeah.
is the idea that the commander-in-chief can take military action on his own.
But once again, we come back to this very brief, ambiguous
Authority.
phrase in the Constitution. What's a declaration of war for? I mean, if Congress is like, you know what? These people are bad. And in fact, military action at your discretion because you are the commander in chief is called for. And simply say, we're at a state of war with this government. And then it's your job, boss, to take appropriate action. When, where, how, with what forces, you know, and maybe we place some limits on that. You know, we may say you can only spend $200 billion. That's, you know, I know a discount war at this point, but
That is a discount war.
yeah. But you know, just to make up a number, something like that.
Right. Congress always does. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Their numbers are made up.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting because like with the Middle Eastern wars, Congress drafted the rules of engagement laws, which the soldiers hated because it was in favor of the Muslims. And so our soldiers lost lives many times because we couldn't shoot first.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Well, yeah. I mean, so that's
yeah,
the executive is supposed to operate under the rules that Congress lays down, which could up to include, okay, well, you've placed such restrictions on us that we can't fight effectively. All right, I'm not doing this action. I am not going to send our soldiers into that situation. We'll find something else to do.
like with Vietnam.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll pull the foot soldiers out and just bomb the heck out of them. Which becomes the default, you know, in post, you know, World War II warfare. Those seem to be the two, you know, it's no longer gunboat diplomacy, it's bomber diplomacy. So dang, can we find something more cheerful to talk about?
We can't. Unfortunately.
Are we done for today? I don't even know. It's like, you know, 10:23.
Yeah, there's nothing more cheerful to talk about. That's the problem.
That's the problem. Yeah. I mean, you have to
And
go
all the interesting stuff is always like, well, what does the bad news mean for us here today?
right.
Right.
Yeah.
This is a thing. Did you know that a cricket game can last 5 days?
I won't say that I knew that specifically. I think I have heard at some point in my distant past that cricket games could last multiple days.
Apparently,
You
it's
have to pause for tea and crumpets every so often.
Yeah, though. Yeah, they have breakfast, lunch, and afternoon tea scheduled breaks.
Yeah.
And if they get extra tired, they'll get extra tea breaks.
Okay.
And the game will last 5 days.
Okay.
Wow.
And it's such an event.
Are there sleeping breaks at some point? You get to go over to the clubhouse and get your cot out.
I think the days it's like 8 to 5 each day.
Okay.
So like, I was learning about this the other day on Joe Rogan, and I was like, but yeah, like cricket is like apparently a very, very involved game, and I had no idea that a game lasted 5 days. I was like, this is risk on steroids.
It is. Yeah. It's like Axis and Allies.
Right.
Yeah.
This is intense. Could you imagine though? You're just say, well, I'm going to go watch the game this whole week.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. It started on Saturday and doesn't end until Wednesday. Yeah. Oops.
Shoot.
That's a lot of hot dogs.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna miss the Monday
Or-
morning meeting or crumpets.
Muppets or pasties or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
They eat in the UK at sporting events.
I mean, I think some panda in China had a pair of twins
So we got twin baby pandas.
There you go.
So that's,
Very cuddly. Yeah.
They're not endangered anymore.
there we go. Look at that.
That's
Yeah.
exciting.
Mm-hmm. Good news. Good
Let's-
news is happening
Yeah.
everywhere.
I have heard, this is kind of funny, that pandas are a conspiracy because they're too dumb to survive in the wild.
Oh?
So they were what? Genetically
don't
engineered? Oh, they don't
They
exist.
don't exist. It's just all made up, computer-generated images. And I was like, I'm pretty sure they exist, but they are very goofy. Very goofy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Huh.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
They file that with a moon landing. Yeah.
Well, that's where pandas live.
This is the moon.
They live on the moon because there's no natural predators. So that's where they can survive.
That's right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And spacesuits.
I mean, that's, it's
And people, the
little black patches is like where the
rock.
suction cups of the spacesuits kind of
Yeah.
attach. So, but yeah, panda twins. So,
Shoot them
Mhm.
loads of bamboo every so often.
Yeah.
Probably have a hydroponic satellite orbiting the moon.
Mhm.
Grows them bamboo.
Yeah.
Drops it off every so often.
Oh yeah, if China doesn't have wolves, what would they be endangered by?
Yeah, I mean, pandas are pretty big.
Pretty big.
Wolves can bring down big prey, but
I don't know what the predator would be over there. Do you know?
I've never heard of one.
They have other I mean, there are other bears, I believe, in Asia. So, but yeah, they may be I don't even think they would be. Yeah, they may just not have a particularly
I mean, you want to talk about things that
particularly dangerous natural predator against the adult population.
I mean, you want to talk about things that are so ridiculous, like how could that possibly actually be an animal and do any of the things you say it does? I mean, koala bears would never
Yeah.
even drink water.
They don't
They
have
only eat eucalyptus leaves. That's what I've been told. Like,
They're pretty cute.
yeah, they're very
I don't
cute.
know.
I mean, you talk about things that can't fight off predators, but
I look at a koala's face and I think that looks like the face of every homeless man I've seen in New York.
okay, that escalated quickly.
It's true. Yeah, like the little white whiskers coming off the side.
off
I'm
of
like,
it.
oh yeah, no.
This is apparently part of the deal.
That looks like that looks like
Yeah.
Mel.
What
Yeah,
are you doing?
Mel wasn't doing so hot. Yeah.
Like the dodo birds.
Okay, yeah,
Just pretty chill.
yeah. You just go up and club them, take them home, put them in the pot, along with your guinea pig.
That just sort of evolved into this little corner that the rest of predation had forgotten about.
Yeah, like maybe that's why the panda bears can be kind of silly because they don't have any predators. They just got endangered because they weren't enough bamboo.
Right. Right.
I don't know.
You're right. You never see eagles relaxing like this. I mean, eagles are serious.
They are very serious.
They're very serious.
They are very serious birds.
Yeah. Because it's a knife fight out there.
Sure is.
Oh my gosh.
They've
Are we
got
out of time,
They've
Paul?
got to find those fish. They've got to find those fish, or else bad things will happen. I
Yeah.
mean, it's, I'm just going to become less and less coherent here.
Oh, all right. Well, let's round it out at the point of fun coherence then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Perfect. Well, thanks for coming on. It's always so fun to have you back in town.
Yeah.
So give us a lot to think about.
Oh, well, I
Always a
appreciate
pleasure, man.
the hospitality.
Cheers.